Xu Qian's eyes widened. Let's be honest. He was used to seeing such scenes in Jiaofeng Temple. But even if it's a dancing girl in Kyobo Temple, it is not as bold as the women in the church. Xu Qian is ridiculously lustful for this uncle. There is a further understanding. Sister Bao is about to be abolished. He's still indulging in sex here. Even more ridiculous. The queen is still behind the blame. The air is cold. When will Voldemort be able to stand up? Xu Qian took off his saber. Knock on the door frame with the scabbard. Engraved to the rounds. The man squatted to the left. The woman squatted to the right. Hold your head in your hands. Take out your ID card. The crowd who were obsessed with the sound was taken aback. That's when I noticed Xu Qian and Princess Huaiqing standing outside. Huaiqing said coldly, "Everyone exited the lobby. Do not be at the mercy of here. Violators will be killed." Xu Qian looked around at the people in the hall. "Don't hurry up yet." The voice fell. Musicians and dancers dispersed with diners. Uncle Gu shouted that he was not allowed to leave, but it couldn't stop the crowd that had dispersed. Angry, he stomped his feet and looked at Princess Huaiqing. Angry said, "You don't stay in the palace. What are you doing at my uncle's house?" Huaiqing's voice was full of coldness. "Father's emperor is in court this morning. After the abolition is proposed. Uncle Gu is the younger brother of his mother. I'm also in the mood to drink and have fun in the house." Uncle Gu suddenly became irritable. "What can I do? I'm not unwilling. I said not to let the queen be abolished." "Your Majesty will agree." The eldest princess asked. "Does Uncle Gu know the reason for his father's abolition?" Uncle Gu was taken aback. "It's not my sister who wants the fourth prince to be the crown prince. Frame the one in the East Palace." Huaiqing sneered at Uncle Gu. "This palace is ordered by the emperor to arrest you." Uncle Gu was furious and seized me. Why did Huaiqing finally show a sneer? Uncle Huang Xiaorong, the daughter of the Ping Palace, heard the words as if he had been struck by lightning. The whole body was a burst of something. Huang Xiaorong celebrates. "What nonsense are you talking about?" As he spoke, he yelled at Princess Huaiqing. The feeling of emptiness is overflowing. Bai Qing took out the dull yellow silk material, slapped at Uncle Gu's face. "If you don't see the coffin, you don't shed tears." Yuanjing 31 Spring. What did you do to Huang Xiaorong? You know it best in your heart. Uncle Gu's pupils were dilated. He looked terrified. "Who told you that? Who told you about Huang Xiaorong?" Xu Qian cooperated. "Naturally, it's the Queen Mother." Uncle Gu also reacted surprisingly. "I can't tell if it's excitement or anger." "You fart? I'm the only son of the Shangwan family. How could he betray me? How dare he betray me? What face will he have to see his father in the future?" "Don't lie to me," Xu Qian'an said disdainfully. "Because Huang Xiaorong was involved in the concubine Fu case. His past was revealed. The queen had no choice but to confess." Yuanjing 31 Spring. You defiled Huang Xiaorong in the palace. Uncle Gu screamed hysterically. "It is impossible that Huang Xiaorong has already died. My sister promised me. It'll help me out of my mouth." Xu Qian glanced sideways at the eldest princess. Muttered to myself. In fact, it was the queen who did not extinguish her mouth. She just knocked out the fetus in Huang Xiaorong's womb. Huaiqing was right. The queen is too soft-hearted. Huaiqing was still expressionless. "Tell the truth. Say it to Hanggu. It's better than confessing in a tiller's dungeon." Or, Uncle Gu wants to try the taste of punishment in the dungeon. Uncle Gu sat down in a daze. Then his whole body trembled up and down like chaff. "It was Huang Xiaorong who did have an affair with me, but he did it willingly, because he thought I was His Majesty." Uncle Gu's voice became colder and colder the more he spoke. "It seems that it is not you who has done the wrong thing at all. It's the one named Huang Xiaorong. The more you talk, the crazier you get. I love beauty, but I'm tired of the women in the Qinglu and the teaching workshop. The concubines in the house have long since lost their novelty to me. Gradually, I found out The women in the palace fascinated me more than the women outside. It's all my sister's fault for not treating him. There are so many palace maids in Fengchi Palace. But he wouldn't even let me touch it. His Majesty is obsessed with monasticism. Not close to women for many years. What's wrong with me asking for 1 or 2 palace maids? He is the master of the harem. As long as he agrees. Who can stop it? I don't want His Majesty's concubines. That day, I went to Fengchi Palace to visit the queen. I saw a palace maid who sprinkled and swept. He was born handsome and lovely. Lovely. I thought it was the new palace made from Fengchi Palace. Then he stepped forward and moved his hands and feet. Oh, that stupid woman thought I was. His Majesty blushed and did not dare to refuse. Let me be my guard. Xu Qian's eyes were a little colder. Uncle Guo should not be lying. Huang Xiao entered the palace in the 28th year of Yuanjing. At that time, His Majesty was already obsessed with monasticism. Don't go to the harem anymore. A little palace maid. I haven't seen what Emperor Yuanjing looks like at all. Uncle Guo continued. I took advantage of the fact that there was no one around, and he took him into the chamber. The joy of fish and water. Afterwards, he was overjoyed. Think of yourself as serving your Majesty. Think of yourself as unique. A woman who can break His Majesty's vows. Don't say it's him. Up to the concubines in the harem. Down to the palace maid, who hasn't fantasized that they can be different. By His Majesty's spirituality. Xu Qian heard this. I just feel sorry. Of course, it's just a pity for the stupidity of the queen. The uncle pretended to be the emperor's spiritual palace maid. It's no wonder that the queen wants to protect him privately. Those 10 lives are not enough to cut. Uncle was swallowed. Then I lost my mouth. Often has tryst with Huang Xiao in the name of visiting the queen. I felt a different way of it with her. It's not like any other woman. When I never thought of it. She was pregnant. That's when I panicked. Informed the empress of this. She scolded me. Ordered that I should not be allowed to step into the harem for another half step. And promised me to kill Huang Xiao to kill her mouth. Clean up the mess for me. Su's wife said leisurely. So Huang Xiao always thought that she was pregnant with a dragon species. Therefore, he hated the queen who forced her to have an abortion. Later, she found out that she had been deceived. It turned out that the person who seduced her was not the emperor. It's your uncle. But the fetus was gone. It's a foregone conclusion. She can't afford to mess with the queen. In a fit of rage, he committed suicide. But the queen was too kind-hearted. Feel guilty about what you've done. So, I took the elixir from the imperial pharmacy. Save Huang Xiao's life. But I didn't expect that 4 years later, a disaster was planted. Uncle Guo is angry, and this is all to blame on her. If she had killed Huang Xiao in the first place, how could there be today? She was the one who hurt me. It's all her to blame. Xu Qian suddenly interrupted her. Sharply said that you were lying. If it's just Huang Xiao, then the queen doesn't have to take the blame. Huang Xiao is dead. There is no proof of death. The queen doesn't recognize it. Now he has confessed. Description: except for Huang Xiao. You still have a handle in the hands of others. Uncle Guo lowered his head and gritted his teeth. Obviously, Xu Qian hit the key. He glanced at the yellow silk book Qinsheng. Said that it was originally to show his identity. I quietly took a piece of material from the queen's palace. Xu Qian understood. Originally, that's how the yellow silk joke on Huang Xiao's body came about. Huaiqing said lightly, Lord Xu can, based on the results of the autopsy, find clues to lock the uncle. What's more, it's the mastermind behind the scenes who already knows the inside story. If the Queen Mother does not recognize it, then there will naturally be evidence next. Help Lord Xu find out about Uncle Guo's head. What's more, with the iron bones of our uncle, and was imprisoned all night. Everything was photographed. Uncle Guo excitedly pounced on Huaiqing and asked me to see the queen. Your Majesty will abolish it after it is abolished. He doesn't love His Majesty anyway. Defenders are dispensable for him. But Huaiqing, you're the only uncle like me. Huiqing's rare fury. Shut up. The relationship between the father and the queen mother. How can you slander it? Xu Qian sighed twice in his heart. He's really talented. It's not so much that he's bold. It's better to describe it as stupid. Do things without regard to the end. Always thinking that someone would wipe his ass. Rest of my time. It's a giant baby. There is a lack of social beatings. The most critical thing is, putting a hat on the emperor is really exciting. But the uncle who really dared to put it into action. It's a scorpion poop poison. This matter does not matter to the queen's generation, or the uncle of the country gets the punishment he deserves. It's all the emperor's family lineage. It has nothing to do with me. But suddenly, Xu Qian's heart flashed with inspiration. The queen is the praised sister of the uncle. Can't really do anything to him. But how could Wei Gong tolerate this kind of pig teammate? Even if the two are world friends. But with the wrist of Wei Gong. Knock a gentleman. Let him be honest. It's definitely a breeze. Su Weifan asked if Wei Gong knew about it. Huiqing heard this. Immediately looked at him. Thoughtfully. Uncle Gua, who was still frightened and helpless a moment ago. After hearing the word Wei Yuan. Suddenly, he became vicious and angry. Sneered yes. All of this must have been designed by Wei Yuan. It had to be him. He killed my father. Now they want to harm me again. He's a wolf-hearted thing. He deserves to be cut off. A big question flashed in Xu Qian's little brain. Before entering the house, Huiqing also talked to him. The Wei family and the Shangguan family are world friends. It can be seen from the attitude of Uncle Gua. Where is this world friend? It's a feud or not? Come to think of it, Xu Qian immediately looked at Huiqing. He frowned. It also seems that they don't know the inside story. I was also puzzled by Uncle Gua's words. Xu Qian took the initiative to ask what he meant. Why did Wei Yuan harm you? Uncle Gua laughed coldly. I dare to say. Do you dare to listen? You know Wei Yuan back then. Halfway through the conversation, Xu Qian slapped him. Interrupted Uncle Gua. Then, Xu Qian dragged Uncle Gua out like a dead dog. Well, I don't want to hear it. I just want to bring you back to the yamen arms of the workers. Princess Qing saw this. There was no objection either. Followed out of the Shangguan mansion. Uncle Guo was carried out of the house by Xu Qian. According to Huiqing's instructions, Uncle Guo was handed over to several guards. They escorted him to the yamen of the watchman. At this time, the eldest princess's cold voice came from Lord Su. You might as well ride in the same car as the main shrine. Xu Qian ran up quickly. At the same time, I was still thinking about it in my heart. That's not good. How can lonely men and widows share a carriage? Neither my sister, nor my aunt, nor I have ever been in a carriage. The two of them got into the luxurious carriage built of golden silk nanmu. The coachman whipped his horse. Two horses neighed and pulsated hooves. Quickly and smoothly drove away from the street outside Shangguan's ancestral house. In the carriage, Xu Qian kept sighing in his heart. This is the ancient version of the nanny car. This carriage is estimated to be worth a few thousand taels of silver. At this time, the eldest princess took out the tea leaves from the wooden cabinet under the coffee table. While boiling tea, I said to my lord, what do you have to suggest? Xu Qian heard this. His Royal Highness Chen Yindao must have an idea in his heart. Huiqing nodded slowly. I have never liked Uncle Gua. It was because of him. He deserves to end because of him. Xu Qian heard the subtext. It's about me being ready to hand over my uncle. But he frowned anyway. But even so, the queen is still guilty of cover-up. This can be big or small. If Emperor Yuan Jing magnanimously forgave the empress, then Hinayana is sufficient. It doesn't have to be scrapped. On the contrary, Emperor Yuan Jing can take advantage of this to abolish the queen. Enough of the charges. With Xu Qian's understanding of Emperor Yuan Jing, the emperor was possessive. This kind of person has a deep mind for power. But at the same time, I can't rub sand in my eyes. Princess Huiqing sneered. who said that the queen mother was covered. It was Uncle Gua who understood concubine Fuan, knowing that what they have done is about to be revealed. So he sent someone to plead bitterly with the queen mother. The queen mother thought of the blood love, although he hated his uncle for doing such a trouble. Compliments, but he still chose to bear the charge for his uncle. Xu Qian'an looked at Huaiqing's expression and tone of voice. It's like an old hole. It was as if it was written on his face. That's the truth. He could only sigh that the princess was right. But after saying that, he was a little worried. If this woman marries home, it's hard to cheat and cheat. At this time, the eldest princess opened her mouth lightly. Hanggu was curious. Uncle Wood didn't finish the sentence. Why did Lord Su interrupt? Xu Qian'an smiled calmly. What did Uncle Gua want to say just now? I don't know. If your highness wants to know, turn around and interrogate for you. He deliberately interrupted Uncle Gua just now, because this matter involves unjustification. For Xu Qian'an, there are two things that you need to avoid. The first is complimenting ciphertext. Needless to say, this is not a big deal. The second is the secret related to Wei Yuan. Dad Wei is his immediate boss and backer. If you want to continue to mix in the capital, it is necessary to maintain a good relationship with Wei Yuan. Then he should know some of Wei Yuan's secrets. Unless Wei Yuan told him personally. Huaiqing glanced at him in surprise. Turned to say that the queen's affairs don't have to worry about Lord Su. Wei Guild handled. What you have to do is find out who is behind it. What do you think? Xu Qian'an frowned. Look at the teacup in your hand. I didn't speak for a long time. This side of the curious building of the Yamen of the Watchman. New Eerie Garden. Enter the tea room. Gongwei of Gongxing Road. Princess Huaiqing's guards pressed Uncle Gua to the Yamen. Uncle Gua clamored to see you. Wei Yuan put down the brush. Faintly said that the dying person does not need to be seen. Go and inform Nangong Jingluo. Be well treated. Uncle He Ili retreated in the original language. Xu Qian'an and Huaiqing returned to the palace on the same trip. The eldest princess went straight to Fengqi Palace. Xu Qian'an intends to continue to check the people on the list. He called for the little unit coordination office. Straighten out the list. Follow the map. When the last person is found. But it hit a nail. That person was the palace maid of the splendid palace. At this time, the unit guarding the door stopped Xu Qian'an. Sister Lana is serving the concubine. Come back later. Xu Qian'an said lightly. It's better when the official will come. The eunuch is not salty or indifferent, who knows. Come back tomorrow. Xu Qian'an took out 5 taels of silver and handed it over. Pleasant face, tired, public accommodation. The case is urgent. How can it be so delayed? I'm just getting a little bit of an idea. A matter of one word. The gatekeeper took the money. I turned my head and went in, but Xu Qian'an waited for an hour. I never saw the eunuch come back. He was angry and corrupt and deceived people too much. That dog thing is playing tricks on me. After Emperor Jing proposed to abolish the yen in the court, after half a day of fermentation, Dafeng officialdom is almost universally known. Everybody knows. This side of Shaoyin Palace. Lina was in a good mood. Being in the palace, she naturally heard about it. The Second Highness, dressed in a gorgeous red dress, hummed a little song. Sit on a swing on a vine trellis. The Empress admits to framing the crown prince. Qu'il concubine est fou. So, the prince's brother will soon be able to come out of Dali Temple. The mother concubine does not have to wash her face with tears every day. And there are many more. The dog minion also came back alive. Just half a decade. It's time to go. Lin Jing has a feeling that the years are quiet. Huaiqing must be sad now. Who let the queen frame my prince's brother? But let's read it for the sake of a good mood in this palace. I won't be looking for her to show off these days. At this time, footsteps were heard outside the courtyard. The maid shouted to His Highness from afar. Lord Su is here. He sat on the swing and didn't move, but the player waits for it. Xu Qian'an led the little eunuch in. He bowed to Lin and with a big grin. Isn't the case over? Dog minion, why do you still have to enter the palace to handle the case? Xu Qian'an. Exhale hard. Isn't the case over yet? Your Highness, I am not your person. Biao Biao nodded without hesitation. Of course, Xu Qian'an squirmed and wailed. I was bullied. It's very difficult in my house. My second uncle told me, since I was a child, the children of poor families are in charge of the family at an early age. But the dog thing in the splendid palace who was stabbed with 1,000 knives. He even extorted 10 taels of silver from me. Although Lin and is an NA, but it's still very moral. Hearing this, I was immediately unhappy. Zhuanqiu's little hand slapped the stone table fiercely. Willow eyebrows counted down. Go to the splendid palace. This palace administers justice for you. The table thought that the silver was small. But the people who bullied me linen, that's a big problem. Su wife and obediently followed her Royal Highness the Princess. Looks like he has been wronged. Walk for a moment. Suddenly asked His Highness. Chun Guifei sighed. Is there a palace maid named Lana? Antelope glanced back at him. I nodded a little inexplicably. Xu Qian'an saw this. Hurriedly asked, this palace maid is the old man of the splendid palace. The table said yes. Since entering the palace, he served by his mother's side. Su wife and asked His Highness, can you tell me about this person? Like what you like. Hate something. Something has happened recently. The table was a little displeased. How could this palace care about a palace maid? What have you been doing lately? But she thought about it. I still added that I like to eat mung bean cakes. I often see the Queen Mother give her the rest of the mung bean cake. She loves to eat. The two of them asked and answered. Quietly arrived at the splendid palace. Far away, Xu Qian'an saw the one from himself. The eunuch who guarded the gate with 10 taels of silver. Xu Qian'an stepped forward and slapped him. Then he shouted in a deep voice, Your Highness. He was the one who blackmailed me. The eunuch guarding the door covered his hot face. Angry and angry. He didn't expect that. Xu Qian'an actually came back with his second highness to find trouble. Looking at the table, Xu Qian'an doesn't seem to be relieved. Coldly commanded, one more mouth. Xu Qian'an slapped him again, threw the eunuch who guarded the door, and stumbled. Tonight is shocking. Linen's pretty face is like frost. The people of this palace also dare to blackmail. Look at the face of the concubine. I'll spare you once. Next time, I dare to be disrespectful to Lord Su. Directly reduced to work as a coolie. Spit out the silver. The eunuch guarding the gate was unwilling. 5 taels of silver were more than a month's worth of profit. But he didn't dare to disobey the orders of His Royal Highness. Can only be handed over. He took out the silver that had just been warmed. Serve it with both hands. The minion dog looks down on people. Please don't blame you. Su's wife was happy, willing to give a paltry gatekeeper a chance. He's actually a pretty kind woman, more innocent than most royal women. I'll have to keep an eye on him. Can't let him be harmed by scumbags. Xu Qian'an interrupted his thoughts when he thought of this. But he still didn't stretch out his hand. Go and take the money from the eunuch. Lung said coldly, I gave you 10 taels. The eunuch looked up, dumbfounded. 10 taels is obviously 5 taels. How could Lord Su wrong the minions? Xu Qian'an immediately looked at His Highness the table. Look at this dog thing. I didn't take you seriously at all. Lin heard this, immediately glared at him. Those peach blossom eyes that can't be fierce. The eunuch guarding the door was very helpless. I had to say that the slave didn't dare. He reached out and touched his body for a long time. But he only found 3 taels of silver and a handful of broken silver. Crying and mourning, the face of the minion. There is only so much more. Xu Qian'an smiled and put the silver into his arms. Doing good deeds does not necessarily pay off. But not doing good deeds will one day be liquidated. This officer will teach you a lesson, and the silver shall be considered to be a tree. After speaking, He turned his head to look at the rounded side of his face. "It's coming. Your Highness will take me into the splendid palace." It just so happened that the humble duty was going to end the Fu concubine case. The watch led him across the courtyard gate. "Enter the courtyard," Xu Qian'an said, His Highness. "The lowly position is looking for a palace maid named Langer. Please let me come. It's just that the table just came in. It's like a wild horse on the loose." Sajoyo ran inside. Without looking back, he called out and understood. "You go to the side hall first and wait." Xu Qian'an entered the side hall. "I found a place to sit down very casually. And when people are not paying attention, take out the Confucian version of the magic book from the fragments of the handing book. A piece of paper that privately records the number of forgotten deeds. When you light the lamp with an opportunity, 2 streams of hydrogen gas emanate from the pupils. Use it. The magic books are all half thin. No, it's such a good thing. I'm going to use it forever. Wait for the spring. Why later? I went to Yunlu Academy to meet my 3 teachers. By the way, they have to think about their affairs in advance." This side of the main house, in the inner courtyard, Chun Guifei's lazy chair was collapsing. 2 personal palace maids waited. One rubbed her shoulders. One person pinched her legs. Chun Guifei was holding a book in her hand, smiled, and said that this spring court moon is really well written. "The more I look at this palace today, the more I like it." The wolf pursed her lips and chuckled. "This is in a good mood. I don't think it's good when I look at it." The other maid smiled and agreed. "Yes, although the prince has not yet come out of Dali Temple. But it's also a matter of time. Nyang has been washing her face with tears in recent days." The slaves and maids were distressed to death. However, Xiao Dao really didn't expect it. The queen of dignity. The means are so vicious. Concubine Taifu framed the prince. "We thought he was really kind-hearted." Chun Guifei frowned, reprimanded. "I don't know that it will be." The queen's mother. Another palace maid brother is petite. "Mother, you're just too careful." His Majesty proposed to abolish the queen in the court. Wait for the Lord to confirm. He was no longer the queen's mother. "Maybe our mother will be the queen soon." Chun Guifei frowned again and again. Wants to reprimand 2 palace maids who are open-mouthed. Suddenly, I heard a light footstep. There was a sound of light and shadow shaking outside the door. Lin An's shadow fell into the house. Mother Linen came. Chun Guifei showed a loving look. "Straighten up and take her into his arms." "Didn't Lin Anshin just come here?" Linen said coquettishly. Did she miss her mother? Akin can't wait to lie in the splendid palace. Accompany the mother concubine every day. Chun Guifei gently stroked her hair. Whispered, then accompany the mother to chat. "I'll see you when you're bored." Shaoyin Temple at this time. The main reason for the cousin's coquettish voice is to miss the concubine. Then, do something by the way. Chun Guifei's smile remained unchanged. Say something softly. The table looked at Warner. Commanded Lord Daoists. "I have something to ask you." He's waiting for you in the side hall of the outer courtyard. After speaking, he explained to Chun Guifei. "It is Xu Qian'an, a migrant worker I trained." The concubine also had an impression of him. He is handling the case of the prince's brother. It seems that there is something to ask Wang in, but the minions guarding the door would not let him in. Chun Guifei pondered for a moment. Go and meet him. The wolf rests his hands flat on his lower abdomen. Even the steps cross the threshold. Out of the yard, in the side hall, Xu Qian'an looked at the little eunuch beside him, laughed at the little father-in-law. "You have been sent by your majesty to oversee your own officer." In the words of the official, "That's the minister. Sit, don't stand." The little eunuch said helplessly. "Out of the capital, that is the Qinsha minion." "Isn't this still in the palace?" "That's still a minion. It's like the governor's. It's majestic outside. But when you go back to Beijing, isn't it just a small imperial room?" His words made Xu Qian'an laugh. "It's 3 points. If Governor Zhang returns to Beijing, it's just a younger brother. And outside, he was majestic. even if it is a great king like a political envoy and a governor. You also have to respectfully call yourself a subordinate. Xu Qian'an asked, "By the way, Your Majesty asked the palace to be on an errand." The little father-in-law nodded, looked at Xu Qian's eyes full of puzzlement. Xu Qian said, "Yesterday, the little father-in-law reported to His Majesty. I went to the Queen's Fengshi Palace. There is a question that has been hidden in Xu Qian's heart for a long time. Yesterday, from Xie Jelly, I found out the origin of Huang Xiaoro and the Queen. Clues begin to point to the Queen, but the records of the income and expenditure of the imperial pharmacy were quietly torn up. Therefore, there is no conclusive evidence. It turned out that it was the Queen who saved Huang Xiaoro, with the wisdom of Emperor Yuan Jing and the city. It should not be before the facts of the case are clear." Hurriedly questioned the Queen. The little eunuch shook his head. Due to the moment, whispered, it was concubine Chen Guifei, who went to His Majesty's bedroom to cry, accusing the Queen of framing the crown prince. His Majesty recited the affection given to the concubine. Only then did he go to Feng Qigong to question the Queen. The minion was also called by His Majesty for questioning at that time. The minions haven't taken the initiative to report yet. Xu Qian frowned. How did Chen Guifei know the progress of the case? Needless to say, it must have been told to him by the table. While chatting, a woman in a green overalls crosses the threshold. Entered the side hall for the palace maid. Ying was rude and said that she had seen Lord Xu. Xu Qian smiled and returned the salute to Sister Wolfer. The wolf stood in the side hall, sweating slightly. What did Lord Xu want to ask? The mother is still waiting for the slave to serve. Xu Qian immediately said sorry. Humble duty is also to do things according to orders. Sister Wolf went to the imperial pharmacy a few days ago. The wolf nodded indifferently. It seems to know everything. Xu Qian continued to ask what to do. The wolf calmly replied, since the birth of the prince. The mother is depressed all day long. Tears. I had a headache that day. The slave went to the imperial pharmacy to get some soothing medicine. Xu Qian asked again, have you ever torn up the account books of the imperial pharmacy? He was on the list of other palace ladies and eunuchs. It's as neat as that. Hopefully it will be for several years. It's the equivalent of a tried-and-true polygraph. It's better than monitoring. The wolf is simple and rude. He shook his head and did not use Xu Qian. I sighed in disappointment. He was telling the truth. It seems that my judgment was wrong. The one who tore up the policy. It is not the imperial pharmacy, which I entered within 5 days. Rather, it was earlier. There are two possibilities. The one who tore up the policy. I entered the imperial pharmacy 5 days ago. Or maybe there's a traitor in the imperial pharmacy. Later, so he went to inquire about the palace maids and eunuchs who were on errands in the imperial pharmacy. Come to think of it, Xu Qian arched his hand and said, I'm done asking. But the case isn't over yet. Probably visit again in the future. The wolf heard this. There was obvious helplessness in his eyes. Xu Qian hurriedly turned around. Send some small gifts to Sister Wolf. The mung bean cake at Guiyue House in Beijing is the signature dim sum. The wolf shook his head, with detachment and a little resistance. Don't say no. Slaves don't like to eat mung bean cakes. Xu Qian heard this. One positive, the compliments that I wanted to blurt out came to an abrupt end, because he remembered when he first entered the palace. The table told himself very clearly. This palace maid who is trusted by Chen Guifei. My favorite is mung bean cake. But now he said it, plus the impatience on the face. Most importantly, the number of forgets shows that the wolf's mood is stable and not lying. He quickly thought of two possibilities. One is that wolves don't like to eat mung bean cakes. The reason why I love to eat. I want to please Chen Guifei. The second is that he is lying. The forgetfulness technique was not screened. This means that he has a magic weapon on him that shields the forgetting technique. The first may be undecidable for the time being. This is the second possibility. It's what makes his scalp tingle. the maid of the splendid palace. How could there be a magic weapon that shielded the forgetfulness technique? What did he do with the weapon of shielding and forgetting? Unless he needs to use this magic weapon to hide from the world these days. Unless he knows he's going to be cross-examined in the near future. He's done it these days. He went to the bath pharmacy. The wolf frowned, looking at Xu Qian'an, who had lost his expression management. Lord Xu and Xu wife immediately collected their emotions. It is not easy to draw conclusions. Maybe she just doesn't like mung bean cakes. I just said what I was thinking about unintentionally. She forcibly calmed down, said that although the second girl of the wolf was the person next to Chun Guifei. But the temper is inevitably too big. This official has shed blood for the imperial court. He has made great contributions. The second wolf girl has such a contemptuous attitude. It is an opinion of the official. The wolf said lightly, Lord Xu thought too much. Slaves and maids are not despiseful. I don't have a problem with adults either. As he spoke, he walked out. The slave maid was still in a hurry to go back to serve the concubine. After saying that, he stepped out of the threshold and left. Xu Qian looked at the back of the palace maid leaving. A star sank to the bottom. In the feedback of the wife-forgetting technique, just now, the wolf still didn't lie. From this he can almost confirm it. This palace maid has a magic weapon on her body to shield her wife. Come to think of it, a scary revelation of the truth. He is the man behind the scenes. Chun Guifei, Xu Qian's scalp was numb. Hurriedly ordered a little eunuch. He staggered out. On the surface, he seems to be at ease. But take a closer look at Xu Qian's pace. It's obvious that he's messed up. Xu Qian scolded again and again, and his heart damned. It's like a haunted house late at night. Countless evil spirits are like living creatures entertaining guests. And he is the passerby who has no intention of breaking the secret. He just wants to pretend he doesn't know anything, then leave before the demon reacts. Luckily, the road was unimpeded. Came to the gate of the palace without any danger. But at this moment his pace suddenly froze. If Chun Guifei is the person behind the scenes, so what happened to the queen is the price that Chun Guifei is about to pay. Deprivation of consolation. Break into the cold palace. What about linen? Come to think of it, he seemed to remember something again. Looking at the eunuch guarding the door, he asked, Thou hast taken my money and entered it. Did you help pass it on? The old eunuch was a little dazed, but still nodded. The villain has passed through. But Sister Wolf said no. Minions are greedy, unwilling to return the silver ticket. It's not easy to explain to adults. Xu Qian nodded. I even confirmed in my heart that the wolf had a magic weapon on his body. So he was prepared. When I think of this, Xu Qian was about to leave. Suddenly, there was a wolf's cry behind him. Lord Xu is slow. Xu Weifen's back muscles tighten quietly. The heartbeat accelerates suddenly. The pretty palace maid smiled brightly. Nyang Yang wanted to thank Master Xu for solving the Fu concubine case. Let His Royal Highness the Crown Prince sink the injustice. Please tell us a little bit about it. Thank you in person. Xu wife and had a little numb scalp. The officer still has the medicine in his body. Inconvenient to stay. The Fu concubine case is the duty of the lowly position. Mothers don't have to be thankful. The wolf pursed his lips and chuckled. Lord Xu is so polite. The mother said. Lord Xu didn't go to see him. He didn't let Master Xu take half a step out of the splendid palace. Xu Qian's heart sank suddenly. Voyerma, I didn't tell anyone what I just found. Even the wolf, he didn't notice the clue. Chun Guifei couldn't have known. I've seen through his schemes. I guess I just want to thank me for making a show. Take a step back. This is the royal palace. There are large internal guards outside. There is linen in it. Chun Guifei can't and doesn't dare to do anything to me here. Besides, I'll cut it in two. Li Yuchen's cultivation is not vegetarian. In the end, Xu Qian still nodded stubbornly. But I didn't forget my other whole card. The little eunuch sent by Emperor Yuan Jing to supervise. although he can't play a key life-saving role. But deterrence should be enough. The two of them followed behind the wolf in the brown palace, walked through the cloister in the front yard, into the backyard. At this time, the little eunuch coughed vigorously. Remind Xu Qian'an, you don't have to follow up anymore. Just wait for the boat to open again. The wolf doesn't stop. He went into the house alone. Nyang Su is here. Chun Guifei snorted. I have something to say to Master Su. Stand down, all of you. Go to the outer courtyard. Then I saw Lin walking out angrily, because he was among them all. But he didn't dare to disobey his mother. Can only pass by Su's wife's side. Poured out his anger on him. But Su's wife and only thinks that he looks very cute. It's just a pity that now is not the time to appreciate and flirt. The little eunuch who followed and was in a dilemma. I don't know where to go. I heard the wolf say, and the mother said. The rest of the people retreated. Don't you have ears? Suddenly, Xu Qian'an reprimanded. Your Majesty has sent you to supervise me. You have to have the consciousness of a minister. Straighten your waist. He deliberately spoke very loudly. After all, this official is a foreign minister. It is inconvenient to meet privately with the concubine. This little father-in-law is in charge of supervising the officer. It was at the behest of His Majesty. There was silence in the room for a few seconds. Then came Chun Guifei's voice. Then wait outside. Xu Qian'an waved his hand at the little eunuch. Motion for him to stand away. As long as it's still in your sight. You guess what would happen next? If only thank me. There is no need to retreat. In other words, what Chun Guifei said to me. It cannot be heard by outsiders. This is also the reason why he asked the little father-in-law to stand farther away. And Qian let the little father-in-law stand farther away. It is a compromise with Chun Guifei. It is also an additional layer of protection for yourself. He could not hear the conversation between himself and the concubine, and could see clearly our every move in the house. This put an end to Chun Guifei pretending to be an eagle and eating chickens. In fact, he framed me for bullying the concubine's calculations. Although this operation is a bit shoddy, but you can't afford not to guard against it. End of thinking. Xu Qian'an entered the house. Saw the end. Chun Guifei sitting on a soft couch in gorgeous overalls. This is the second time Xu Qian'an has seen this beautiful woman. The last time was at the end of last year. Chun Guifei and Lin have the same face shape. The standard goose egg face and eyebrows are very standard. At this time, Chun Guifei's crisp voice sounded. His Majesty in the capital after the court raised the fee. Lord Su must have heard of it. Xu Qian'an nodded concisely. Inferiority is known. Chun Guifei sighed. What is the so-called matter of Lord Su coming to my splendid palace? Xu Qian'an said. There are some doubts in this case. The beautiful woman said with a smile on her face. What's there? Xu Qian'an sneered. This is a lowly and foolish position. No clue. There was a brief silence in the room. Chun Guifei stared at Xu Qian'an for a long time. The smile on his face narrowed a little. The next moment, the teacup in his hand slammed down. The sound was like frost. You lied. Xu Qian'an pretended to be at a loss, and he was tempted. What does Yang mean by this? You can look at others with the art of forgetfulness. Others can also look at you with the wife tree. Chun Guifei sighed unhurriedly. Hongo invites you to come over. Just a test. But you just lied. So that this palace can no longer be lucky. Lord Su has a sharp mind. No matter how delicate a case in the world. It's a little trick for you. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Xu Qian's mind. Chun Guifei is a warlock. It can't be. Why did he confess to me? Aren't you afraid that I will tell Emperor Yuanjing? What was the purpose of inviting me here? Come to think of it, he sighed. Why bother? I can pretend I don't know anything. After saying that, he added in his heart. Then he turned back to Wei Gong and Huai Jing. Deal with it to this point. The two are equivalent to being honest and disrespectful. Chen Guifei was calm, as if she was chatting. When did you find out? Just now. Xu Qian'an nodded calmly. Yes, I can see that the wolf is disguised. Chen Guifei smiled. But I was skeptical before. Let's talk about Su's wife, and Chenin. Humiliation reviews the history of concubine Fu's case. There are indeed a lot of doubts. How could the mother be on the table for no reason? The 100 days of spring that sent the queen. This is a harem after all. Use nourishing and aphrodisiac wine to pour the prince slightly drunk. I am not afraid that she will do something wrong. This is not in line with your careful style. Although the queen can buy Huang Xiaoro to set up a game for the prince. But how could he guarantee that the prince would definitely go to Qingfeng Palace? And you are the biological mother of the crown prince, the son of Mo Ruomu. You know he has a lot of thoughts about concubine Fu. So, halfway through, Huang Xiaoro was sent to wait for the rabbit. It makes more sense to think about it this way. Later, Huang Xiaoro's body was found, and then to the humble position to find clues. All point to the queen. Think the traces of the push are too obvious. But if Huang Xiaoro disappears, it will not achieve your goal of framing the queen. Of course, I hadn't reacted yet. Still feels that the queen is the most suspicious. I can't figure it out. Why are you sending? I tore up the admission book of the Imperial Pharmacy. That should be the strongest evidence for identifying the Empress. And that's not all. Also exposed himself. Chen Guifei shook her head. It's not a superfluous move. That was the evidence I deliberately left behind. If the organizer of the investigation is not you, he would be one of the most useful pieces of evidence for attacking the Empress. But your resurrection from the dead was completely beyond the expectations of this palace. Huang Xiaoro's corpse and the booklet of the Imperial Pharmacy. At the same time to be found words. The traces of the guidance are too heavy. I'm afraid you'll see something. Directly to your majesty. So they sent for someone to tear up the booklet. So you were wondering, but did not insist that the queen was wronged. If your majesty knew about this in advance. Yesterday, the effect of Honga's crying was greatly reduced. Then I learned about the progress of the case from Linen. I'm putting pressure on your majesty, while sending someone to assassinate you. As long as you're dead. The queen pleaded guilty again. It's all going to be seamless. Su's wife nodded slowly. This morning, he also felt that the Empress was the prime suspect in his assassination. I was ruthless in my heart and wanted to divorce Huiqing. It turned out that the person who wanted to kill me was Chen Guifei. Well, no need to say anything. I want to divorce Linen. Xu Qian'an looked at Chen Guifei. There are 2 more questions about humiliation. I don't know if the mother can answer. Chen Guifei said lightly, let's listen. Xu Qian'an said that the prince is already the prince. Why is the mother like this? Chen Guifei smiled. The laughter is complicated. Seems to be laughing at Xu Qian'an. It's as if it's self-deprecating. The crown prince is the prince after all, not to ascend the throne for a day. There is the possibility of a will. The queen has always been the queen. The 4 princes will always be the sons-in-law. What if I told you? His Majesty originally cleared the 4 princes. If it weren't for His Majesty's knowledge back then, the queen didn't love her at all. The 4th prince is already the crown prince at the moment. Xu Qian'an was puzzled. But even so, it's been a long time. The position of the crown prince has not changed. Isn't Yang too worried? Chen Guifei sneered again. What do you know about the court? There is Wei Yuan. The 4 princes will always be bigger than me. Wei Yuan always wanted to be in charge of the court alone. Swept Chen Kuwei. He's going to get his revenge. We'll definitely put the 4 princes on the throne. I can't fight Wei Yuan as a woman. It can only be done from the queen. The queen is the lord of the harem, mother of the world. It is the highest honor for women. Hanggu is also a woman. Also recognized the queen's position. For Wei Yuan's ambitions. Su Weifan understands. Knew that Chen Guifei was telling the truth. He moved on to one last question. Who is the person behind the mother? Chen Guifei shook her head and laughed. Honggu is getting to appreciate you more and more. It seems that Lin inadvertently dug up a piece of treasure. How can you be sure that there are still people behind this palace? Su Qi thought about it. If Nyang had known what her uncle had done. So, why endure it for so long? Only then did he make a move. If Nyang only found out about Uncle and Huang Xiaolu when she came in. So who told the mother? It definitely won't be Huang Xiaolong. He was able to endure for so many years. For no reason. There will be no sudden changes. Take the initiative to reveal it to you. There must be a matchmaker among them. In addition, the mother knew that she was lying. 4 Heavenly Swords Forgetfulness technique. It's not something that ordinary people can do. The humble post just guessed another possibility. Your goal is the queen, and the target of the person or force behind you is the Emiya. Chen Guifei lost a smile on her face. What does Lord Su think of Linen? Su's wife was relieved. That's certainly a nice. Chen Guifei is kind and seductive. The prince told me. Linen has reached the age of leaving the cabinet. I silently kept an eye on it. Subsequently, it was discovered. She's known you since. Come to the splendid palace. The person who talks the most is you. The age of the girl's pregnancy. Honggu has also experienced it. I heard that Lord Su will be knighted soon. The Viscount is not big, but it means that you have stepped into the aristocracy. Honggu can give you a promise. Take your knighthood 1 step further in 3 years. Then I will marry you, Linen. Xu Qian'an hesitated. It's naked wooing. This is also the reason why Chen Guifei and I are honest and disrespectful. Seeing Xu Qian'an's expression, he showed a strange look. Chen Guifei took advantage of the victory to pursue. Even if you know the secret. But it is impossible to identify Honggu. However, he has been in poor health recently. Sudden illness. The imperial doctor did not come back. This result. What does Lord Su think? Xu Qian'an was speechless. Innocent and lovely Linen. How can there be a mother like you? Draw a pie and try to fool me. He muttered for a moment. 3 years was too long. Who knows if the concubine is deceiving her humble position? Chen Guifei frowned. Knighted in 2 years at the earliest. It's not a small thing. You should be clear about that. Su wife and waved her hand. This is not what it means. Humiliation is what I want to say. Clarification can be made after 3 years. But before that, can you round the house first? Xu Qian's unreasonable request just blurted out. The cold eyes climbed up Chen Guifei's face little by little. You're playing this trick. Xu Qian'an shrugged. Laugh and laugh at the person who paints the pie. No matter how nice it sounds. As long as there is a tangible effort. Just turn your face immediately. Chen Guifei took a sip of the teacup. When I put down the teacup, my face was back to normal. The biggest flaw in this palace is the wolf. As long as he's gone, that is death without proof. And Feng Qigong is a tall building. It's about to collapse in the blink of an eye. The so-called good birds choose trees to perch. Lord Su is a smart person. How to choose you know in your heart. Xu Qian'an nodded in agreement. The crown prince is still the crown prince. And the queen is about to mean, Nyang promised to marry Linen to me. That's why I chose the guardian palace. Chen Guifei's face was the same. The hand holding the teacup exerted a slight force. Good half a day. I couldn't help but splash the hot tea on this kid's face. Or the urge to smash the glass. Put it this way. Lord Su is preparing to take Lana away from the splendid palace. I'm going to kill this palace. His voice fell. The atmosphere in the room dropped to freezing point. An invisible killing machine shrouded Xu Qian'an. Su Baipu of the refining god realm. No footage of the enemy shooting was captured. But the instinct of the 7-rank dancer is instilling a signal in him. Danger insists on taking away the words of Wolf 2. That is, to burn the jade with Chen Guifei. So, he's going to jump off the wall in a hurry. No more scruples. This is the harem. Shoot at me. My life is not guaranteed, though there's a letter of God closed. But the book of God is my last hole card. Xu Qian'an sneered. Straighten your back. There was disdain between his eyebrows. Xu Qian'an, faced tens of thousands of rebels that day. Fight alone. Kill thousands of enemies. Die and not fall. Nyang felt that I would be afraid of threats. Ministers are not afraid of death. But why fear it to death? There was obvious surprise in Chen Guifei's eyes. That's right. Lord Xu is indeed a hero. Plant it in your hands. Speaking of which, the concubine tightened the teacup in her hand. Hold it high. It seems that it is better to smash the cup. Suddenly, Xu Qian'an said loudly and slowly, I'm sincere to Lenin. I don't want to see him sad. Today's events. I can pretend it didn't happen. Xu Qian'an thought very heartily. Even if you want to expose the concubine, I have to be able to get out of the splendid palace, too. Chen Guifei stared at her for a moment. Finally put down the teacup. Nodding in satisfaction, you didn't lie. It seems that you are indeed sincere to Lenin. Case. Why is Lord Xu unwilling to take refuge? Xu Qian'an frantically complained in his heart. Are you a fool to me? I will die if I take refuge in you. The only person I can rely on in the capital is Dad Wei. Huaiqing can only be counted as half. As for Lenin, he, a powerless princess, can't protect me at all. Come to think of it, he arched his hand and said, Nyang looked up, not an empty promise. It's about action, humble duty and loyalty to the guard. It's because he treats me with sincerity. I trust him too. After speaking, Xu Qian'an turned sideways and glanced at the little father-in-law outside the courtyard. Then he continued and said that the lowly position was helpless to the mother. It's just that I'm thinking, mother can't do anything to me, right? Once there is no thought of burning jade, then Chen Guifei can't embarrass me anymore. Although the little father-in-law is a minion. But he is now the eyes of Emperor Yuan Jing. Think of it as surveillance. Everything that happens here will be conveyed to Emperor Yuan Jing word for word, unless Chen Guifei kills me directly. Otherwise, any conspiracy, it's useless to frame up. My little father-in-law can testify for me. This is the reason why Xu Qian'an insists on keeping his little father-in-law. Chen Guifei looked at him deeply, and the palace was tired. Stand down. The gate of a splendid palace. Always open for you. Xu Qian'an bowed his hand, retired from his position. The little father-in-law in the courtyard saw him come out. Immediately greeted him. Asked Lord Xu, what did the concubine say to you? Xu Qian'an said goodbye angrily. Asking is not guaranteed. The little father-in-law's face changed slightly. When I walked to the outer courtyard, I saw Lenin. His round face was smiling. Dog minion, come here. This dog minion shouted without any momentum at all. It sounds like a coquette. Xu Qian'an took a deep breath, suppressed the surging emotions. He laughed casually. His Highness has come out of his humble position. Lenin immediately asked, what did the concubine say to you? Xu Qian'an said happily. Nyang said that His Royal Highness was almost at the age of leaving the cabinet. Ask if there is a suitable candidate for the lowly position. Recommend a few young talents to him. He will help His Highness find a future husband. Lenin was stunned for a moment. Hongxia crept up her face. The concubine will tell you this. Xu Qian'an was a little speechless when he heard this. The heart says, why don't you go up? When did you get smarter? I'd like to recommend myself next. He had no choice but to say helplessly. Humble jokes. The table is counted down. Dog minion, you dared to tease this palace. Xu Qian'an said without skin and face. Humble is still a child. I don't understand what molestation is. The table blushed with shame. The small fist slammed Xu Qian'an's back. Xu Qian'an did not resist. To sign my heart, Chen Guifei is a qualified concubine. It's just that Lenin is such a stupid girl. Grows in the inner courtyard of the palace walls. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. After having some fun with Lenin, Xu Qian was also ready to leave the palace. I've already taken care of the affairs in the little father-in-law's palace. Later when you report to your majesty, something can be said, some can't be said. I'm here to give you a few words. The little eunuch heard this. Immediately take a serious post. Lord Xu, please speak. Xu wife nodded with satisfaction. You want to do the affairs of the splendid palace. 1510 tell the emperor that you have to say that. After inquiring about the ladies of the splendid palace, Lord Xu's face was extremely ugly. It seems that he doesn't want to linger any longer. Didn't even drink tea. But Lord Xu hasn't left the splendid palace yet. Suddenly, she was left behind by the concubine. And please go to the backyard. The concubine retired everyone. I talked to Master Xu for a while in the house. Servants were left in the courtyard and were not allowed to enter, although they could be seen in the house. But I couldn't hear what they were saying. End of conversation. Lord Xu left the palace with a heavy heart. Xu Qian finished speaking. He took out 5 taels of silver tickets from his bosom, and the 5 taels from the eunuch who guarded the gate of the splendid palace. 10 taels in total. Without fireworks, it was handed to the little father-in-law. The little father-in-law stretched out his hand. While the mouth kept chattering, I couldn't help it, so that they may not collect their money. He carefully reviewed Xu Qian's words. There is no big problem with self-awareness. I agreed. Xu Qian immediately left the palace, led from Yu Lingwei's hand to Huaiqing. He borrowed his steed and hurried back to the yamen of the roots. After being passed through by the guards, he entered the strange building. Come to the tea room on the 7th floor. Wei Yuan sat on the big chair. Loose hair. A black-clothed Li Yuan was holding a comb and combing his hair. Wei Yuan said gently and came over to comb his hair. The black-clothed Li Yuan handed the comb to Xu Qian with interest, turned around and left the tea room. Xu Qian held a comb to comb his father's hair. There are no knots from the head down. Comb it to the end. The heart is quite elegant. At this time he said to Wei Gong, how to comb your hair at this time? Wei Yuan's voice was gentle. Hair in Buddhism symbolizes troubles. Comb your hair. The past is written off. Xu Qian was a little puzzled when he heard this. Today's dad Wei is a little strange. What is called a write-off of the past? What antecedents cause and effect? Since dad didn't tell himself own intentions, Xu Qian didn't ask. Instead, he lost the comb in his hand. Laughing and combing your hair is not interesting. Humble and press Wei Gong's head. Wei Yuan also smiled. Try Xu Qian to spread his 5 fingers. Press and hold Wei Yuan's head. Gently pinch the acupuncture points. Wei Yuan's breathing gradually slowed. I feel like I'm back in the world, away from intrigues. Wei Yuan exclaimed, not bad. Xu Qian was very confident in his heart. Sure, this is a barbershop miracle. I'll make you another shampoo when I get back. He coughed, said that there is something to report on the lowly duty. Wei Yuan sighed lightly, signaling Xu Qian to speak. Xu Qian pondered for a moment, said that the lowly position has found out who is behind the scenes. Wei Yuan still didn't speak. Seems to be thinking. It seems to be waiting for Xu Qian to continue. Xu Qian said in a low voice, it's Chun Gui Fei. I went to the splendid palace today to investigate the case. Discover the palace made beside him. It is the one who tears up the books of the imperial pharmacy. He brought his findings and Chun Gui Fei's solicitation. 1510 told Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan opened his eyes. He was silent for a long time and did not speak. Then he patted Xu Qian's hand, motioned for him to stop, get up, and walk to the edge of the lookout. The tone is still gentle, you think. Who is the force behind Chun Gui Fei? Xu Qian shook his head, said that it may be related to Si Tianjian. Wei Yuan looked at the scenery outside the lookout. The Tao with a firm tone is not Si Tianjian. It took Xu Qian a few seconds to react. Stunned, Wei Gong. You know that it is Chun Gui Fei who is calculating the queen in you. Wei Yuan nodded. At first, I didn't expect him to be ruthless. He dragged the prince into the water. After the case is handed over to you, I didn't pay any attention. Until this morning, I learned that the queen confessed. Listen to you finish the whole story. I guess that it was Chun Guifei. Xu Qian'an stared at his back. Long ago, he felt that Wei Yuan and Golden Lotus Dao is the same. It's all old I only found out now. The Golden Lotus Daoist is still quite pure. Not as deep as Wei Yuan. Xu Qian'an said suspiciously. Not the Four Heavens sword. Then how could Chun Guifei exert her vigor? Shu except for Tianjian. Who else will forget about the technique? Wei Yuan asked rhetorically. Do you still remember the three-grade warlock who appeared in the Yunzhou case? Xu Qian was stunned in an instant. Wei Gong is very wise. Wei Yuan continued. I have also checked this person, but I didn't find out. Do you know what Tianjian's three-rank warlock is called? Xu Qian heard what the king said. So he blurted out that Sampin is a heavenly mechanic. The celestial mechanic can shield the celestial machine, will exist in itself, and all traces left behind are erased. His parents will forget about him. His wife and children will forget him. All the written records he left behind will also be lost. Besides, the heavenly mechanic can also tamper with other people's impressions of him. Leave a vague memory in my heart, but I can't recall it completely. Wei Yuan nodded. Samber hinted that you had checked the information of the original superintendent, but there is no record of it in any historical sources. Not even a word. You must know that Emperor Wuzong can change history, but it can't stop the mouths of future generations. I can't stop the wild history. B. The traitor erased all information about the first traitor. It's like he never existed. Even me. It is often misunderstood. The traitorous government is the founder of Tianjian, the founder of the warlock system. Then there will be a fragmentation caused by the historical vacancy. Suddenly, I remembered that there was another first-generation traitor. Xu Qian was stunned. How can this be checked? He realized again, the top powerhouses of this world are so terrifying. Wei Yuan saw Xu Qian's thoughts. If you want to investigate, you have to rely on treacherous government. But the traitor refused. Xu Qian pursed his lips. That's an expected answer. Tianjian has a lot of secrets. Traitorous government is like a guard. Secret old man. He asked in a curious tone. Wei Gong can know what the first and second grades of warlocks are called. Wei Yuan shook his head. I've always been at odds with Jianzheng. Dafeng is like a game of chess. He's a chess player. I'm also a chess player. We often have conflicts due to different ways of thinking. Xu Qian looked at Wei Yuan with a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. This is Daddy Wei. It's the first time I've talked to myself about such high-end content. Maybe in his heart, integrity is his greatest enemy. Xu Qian tentatively said how Duke Wei was going to save the queen. Wei Yuan's tone was a little colder. Push the uncle out of the country to take the blame. Whether it will succeed or not remains to be considered. His Majesty loves checks and balances. We'll also think of the abolition of the queen. The crown prince has no rivals. It's just that His Majesty remembered something unhappy. Not necessarily so cool-headed, unless it can make him suspect Chun Guifei. The queen's heart is still too soft. He didn't consult me in advance when he took this step. Xu Qian snickered in his heart. He read the subtext of his father's words. Queen, you're a pig teammate. Still, then it's my turn to make a meritorious service. Xu Qian hugged his fist. Qinsheng said, Wei Gong. Guilty of lowly duty. I just made my own decision. Wei Yuan looked back and frowned. It is suitable for Xu Qian not to hide it. Before leaving the palace, he did something more. I asked His Majesty to send him to oversee it. Little father-in-law. Xu Qian handed himself over to the little eunuch's copywriter. The original paraphrase was given to Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan fell into deep thought. It's just that the face is still gentle. Nothing has changed much. Xu Qian'an hurriedly said that he was not allowed to do so. Cool. Please Wei Gong analyze 1 or 2. At this time, Wei Yuan smiled. Although it is self-proclaimed, but well done. His Majesty is suspicious by nature, and good at checks and balances. Your words reached his ears. Will make him feel moved by Chun Gui Fei, so as to rethink the entire Fu concubine case, the pros and cons of many parties, and the balance he's been struggling to maintain. Su wife and is still not satisfied, said in a tone that was not very confident. Will it be seen by His Majesty, or that little father-in-law confess to His Majesty? Collect my money. Speak for me. Wei Yuan smiled and said with a smile, you didn't disclose what you said. It's all real things. As for the latter question, confess to your Majesty. Will only expose themselves to accepting bribes. This is a centipede thing who would shoot themselves in the foot. I can be an errand boy in His Majesty's bedroom. Not to mention how smart. At least not too stupid. Xu Qian saw that his goal was achieved. I laughed twice in my heart. Actually, this is what Dad said. He knows it all? Xu Qian climbed up the pole. A sycophant was sent out without a trace. Wei Gong is extremely smart. Humble admiration. Wei Yuan looked at him deeply. Shake your head and laugh. But his mood is also quite relaxed. Return to the tea room and sit down. Filial piety, you have stepped into the realm of refining gods. Don't stop tempering the original god until the meridian acupoints swell. You'll be able to hone your physique in advance. Xu Qian sequelae. What is the strange cave outside the meridian? That's right, it's the temples in the previous life. Hear the topic. Xu Qian knew. I just did the work and generated good feedback. Dad Wei was in a good mood. I'm going to treat myself to this meritorious service. That seems to be an act of asking for sin, but it is actually an act of asking for credit. Dad Wei can see through it at a glance. But that's what leaders like. A subordinate who holds himself aloft. Even Wei Yuan, who is superior in wisdom, is no exception. I just said Wei Gong. I've done a great job again. The feedback will be completely different. Maybe Dad will criticize a few words. Tell yourself to guard against arrogance and rashness. Be calm. Come to think of it, Su wife asked rhetorically to temper her physique. Wei Yuan nodded. I told you before. The dancer system doesn't happen overnight. It's the constant groping of predecessors. The perfection of the only way to have today's 5 husbands and 9 products. The original copper skin and iron bones. It was beaten with a stick. It's like a blacksmith's hammer. Forge an iron embryo into crystalline iron. It's a lengthy process, and because it often hits the vital parts, if the foundation is not solid enough, we'll die. Su Chi sighed in his heart. Dad, what you said hit the vital part. Is it the kind I understand? Chickens fly and eggs are beaten. Wei Yuan continued. Later, someone created the word medicine, with a special genius treasure as the main ingredient. Put the man in a big top and cook it. The dancer spat and cursed in the top. Resist high-temperature absorption. In this way, the copper skin and iron bones are achieved. Jin Su Qian asked happily, what about the mortality rate? Wei Yuan glanced at him. The stakes are just as great. Sometimes it's cooked when it's boiled. A picture suddenly appeared in Su Qian's mind. He sat in the big top, surrounded by boiling water. Proficient in pharmacology except for Kai Wei. Keep adding condiments to the top. What fennel beans? What cinnamon green onions, small beans? If you stand aside, I guess tears will flow from the corners of my mouth. Ziam listened to these inhuman ways of promotion. I only felt a tingling sensation on my scalp. He swallowed quietly. Is there a safer way? Wei Yuan nodded. With the birth of generations of geniuses. Finally, someone created the first set based on gas refining. A practice method supplemented by quenching. At the heart of this method is a special way of exercising qi. Temper the body from the inside out. Then mix with beating or cooking. The danger will be greatly reduced. As he spoke, he unfolded a piece of rice paper, wrote the 3 words of mixed yuan gong. The top method of beating the guard yamen is called mixed yuan gong. Every golden gong uses this method. If this is thrown on the rivers and lakes, it will inevitably lead to bloody storms. Xu Qian'an once again realized that he had taken refuge in Wei Yuan. The benefits of being a watchman. Here are the best exercises. There are resources that are beyond the reach of the people. For yourself, these are at your fingertips. Xu Qian'an sighed Wei Gong. Is there no need to cook without beating with sticks? You can cultivate the method of practicing qi with copper skin and iron bones. Wei Yuan was silent for a few seconds. Gentle Buddhism has a similar method. Some people say that the copper skin and iron bones of the warrior. It is actually based on the diamond mirror of Buddhism. It is also said it was the Buddha who referred to the 5 systems. A new path was created in the Buddhist system. It's called a warrior monk. Xu Qian'an unconsciously showed an innocent smile on his face. Other words, the warrior monk system has a set that does not need to be cooked. You can cultivate the method of copper skin and iron bones. It's easy to do. A wave of turning back routines. Number 6 came from his hand for nothing. This side of the emperor's bedroom. Footsteps could be heard from outside. A small eunuch stopped outside the dormitory. The old lady saw the small steps move to the door. Lower your voice. The suitable eunuch whispered that the godfather was in hand. Send the Taoist priest of the Lingbao official to invite your majesty. The old eunuch was visibly stunned, pinched his fingers, and counted the time. The heart said that the day was right. These days of the month. It is a time when the body of the national teacher remains unchanged and retreats. Even his majesty can't bother. You can only slaughter in your own dormitory. The old eunuch nodded and understood. Stand down and send away the little eunuch. He walked slowly back to his bedchamber. Emperor Yuanjing sat cross-legged on the couch. Close your eyes and breathe. A stick of sandalwood burned in the corner of the bed. Light smoke is slender and straight. The old eunuch whispered, Your Majesty. The countryman sent someone to invite. Invite Your Majesty to come and enlighten. Emperor Yuan Jing opened his eyes instantly, slightly stunned for a moment, followed by the eyes of those ancient wells without waves bloomed brightly. Hundreds of quick picks. Every month, state affairs are scorched by night fires. 7 emotions and 6 desires are surging. So these days, the national teacher will choose to retreat. No one is allowed to enter the Lingbao Pass. But Emperor Yuan Jing knew, if one day the national teacher agrees to take a weekend off, that's definitely these days. Emperor Yuan Jing has been waiting for this day for a long time. He can't regenerate now, though. The body is strong, as if in the prime of life. But it still can't live forever. If you want to go further, there is only a double cultivation with the national teacher. Take advantage of his spiritual fortune. In this way, long live, long live, long live. Truly become the eternal emperor of Daebong. Climb aboard the dragon twist. Leave the dormitory. Emperor Yuan Jing urged all the way. It didn't take long to arrive at Lingbao Pass. But when he saw the female national teacher, disappointing discovery. Did he really just invite himself to come and meditate? It's like doing your homework. The picturesque female national teacher sits cross-legged on a futon. Your Majesty has a soft voice. Please be seated. Emperor Yuan Jing was unwilling. Chun Dao Dao is not willing to rest with me. Why invite me here at this moment? Luo Yuheng said lightly that he would not be burned by fireworks this month. Poor Dao promised to teach His Majesty the art of immortality. Keep your promises in mind. Don't dare to slack off for a day. Emperor Yuan Jing was indifferent for a moment. Under the futon seat that belongs to him, I didn't close my eyes and swallow it out immediately. Instead, he said, the national teacher, the medicinal materials of the rejuvenation pill have been prepared. Tomorrow I will send someone to bring it. Lingbao official Luo Yuing sighed. His Majesty can't be reborn. Tuna has been monastic for many years. It has long been free of all diseases. There is no need to refine the Four Seasons divine pill anymore. It's just that Emperor Yuan Jing ignored it. Close your eyes and throw up. He has to practice 4 furnaces of Great Dan all year round. They're on the spring breeze, the summer solstice, and the autumn equinox, and the winter solstice in the 4 solar terms. Every furnace of Dayton is worth a fortune. It's worth 3 years of tax revenue for a county. In addition to the 4 furnaces of Dayton, there are also 36 small Dan furnaces. Hoween's sentence is appalling. These taels of silver are not appropriated from the treasury of the household. It was all spent in Emperor Yuanjing's own small treasury. As for how did the silver taels of Emperor Yuanjing's small treasury come from? Everyone knows the civil and military affairs of the Manchu dynasty. But it was tacit. The end of enlightenment with the national teacher. It's sunset. Emperor Yuan Jing was in a bad mood. After returning to the dormitory, he was silent. Suddenly, I remembered that the concubine case was not over yet. The tone is impatient for the most part, but let the cabinet female finger. Unless the case is delayed again and again. It's been a decade now. Then make you think twice. The results are available within 2 days. The old eunuch knew. This is the result of His Majesty's desire for the Empress's guilt. He hesitated, said in a low voice, that Xu Qian'an came to the palace again today. Emperor Yuan Jing frowned. What else did he do? You will send someone tomorrow to fight the Ginran. Take back the gold medal. The old eunuch nodded. Said angrily, do you still want to ask the slave today? Emperor Yuan Jing thought for a moment. Not slowly. The old eunuch Xian withdrew from the dormitory in less than a quarter of an hour. Brought in the little eunuch who supervised Xu Qian'an. The little father-in-law told the story. Today, Lord Xu took the minions to inquire about the list of people entering and leaving the imperial pharmacy. The last place on the list is in the splendid palace. The big palace made next to the concubine. Lord Xu took the minions to interrogate. Ate a closed door. Lord Xu was helpless. I went to Shaoyin Palace to find His Royal Highness Linen for help. After inquiring about languor of the splendid palace, Lord Xu's face became extremely ugly. It seems that he doesn't want to linger any longer. He left in a hurry with his minions without even drinking tea. But he hasn't left the splendid palace yet. That languor turned back and came out. Said that the concubine invited Lord Xu to enter the hospital. Thanks to him for solving the Fu concubine case. Lord Xu was originally reluctant to see him, but the wolf forcibly kept him for a while. Then, the concubine retired from everyone. Neither can the minions enter the house. I can only stay in the yard and wait. Emperor Yuan Jing stared at him with a pair of eyes. He groaned for a few seconds, then slowly retreated from everyone. The little eunuch replied truthfully, "Back to your majesty, yes." Emperor Yuan Jing's voice was a little lower. What they said in the courtyard. The little eunuch said, "It's too far apart." The minions couldn't hear clearly. You can only watch from afar. Lord Xu and the concubine were talking in the house. Emperor Yuan Jing said that you just said that Xu wife and asked after looking for the wolf. His face became extremely ugly. Don't wait for the little eunuch to reply. The old lady's face changed slightly. Reprimanded the dog thing. How to teach you usually. His subtext was, don't mix subjective emotions when reporting. Don't try to mislead your majesty. Be fair and objective. Emperor Yuan Jing raised his hand. Interrupted the angry old eunuch. Seeing this, the little father-in-law had a little confidence. It's really ugly. Emperor Yuan Jing pondered for a moment and said that Xu Qian'an wanted to leave. But the wolf forcibly left him behind. The little eunuch noticed. Emperor Yuan Jing's attitude changed somewhat. Cautiously, Lord Xu said that he was ordered to investigate the case. Responsibilities. Mother, no thanks. Busy said that if Lord Xu didn't go to see Nyang Yang, you can't get out of the splendid palace. Hear, hear. Emperor Yuan Jingdi's eyes seemed to have a golden light bursting out. He spoke slowly. What was the mood of Xu Qian'an when she left? The little eunuch did not answer immediately. Instead, he pretended to think about it. That's when it was said that Lord Xu had a lot of trouble. Out of the palace. To add credibility, he added that when he left the palace before, Lord Xu will chatter with the minions. But today is different. Not a word was spoken. Emperor Yuan Jing said sharply, "Retreat." After the little eunuch left the dormitory, Emperor Yuan Jing sat, without saying a word for a long time. Fingers tapped aimlessly, until a quarter of an hour later. He commanded in a deep voice, "Bring the wolves of the splendid palace to me." The eunuch answered. He slowly exited the dormitory. Bring a pair of guards. Walk through layers of palace walls. Arrive at the splendid palace. The eunuch who guards the door. From afar, I recognized Osaka as His Majesty's side. Greeted him. Filial piety. Wait a moment for the slave to inform the concubine. The old eunuch slapped her away. Enter the courtyard with the guards. We're in a hurry. The old eunuch stood in the inner courtyard and said in a loud voice. The old slave begged to see him. At this time, Chen Guifei's house, a palace made with reddish eyes, came out. Whisper softly, "Please come in." The old eunuch followed the maid into the house. But the scene in front of him made him chuckle in his heart. I saw Chen Guifei sitting on a big chair, holding a police handkerchief in his hand. Wipe your eyes from time to time. A face full of sadness. The old eunuch was surprised. What was wrong? Chen Guifei said sadly, a subordinate beside the palace. Just had a sudden illness. Said that there was no help. The imperial doctor didn't save him. The old eunuch's face was solemn, and this lady mourned. What is the name of the palace maid? Chen Guifei no longer pretended. Instantly put away the tears. Langer blurted out 2 words. The old lady's expression was the same when she saw and heard it. I scolded the bad dishes in my heart. Chen Guifei said softly, "Most of them came to my splendid palace. So what's going on?" The old eunuch sighed. "Your Majesty knows this time." The mother was frightened. So send the old slave to comfort the mother. Chen Guifei, don't look over. Wailing and saying, "Your Majesty can't even see the concubine." The old eunuch laughed dryly. I don't comment on the concubine's complaints. Casually said that the second child is not very old. Chen Guifei looked sad for a poor child. The old eunuch took the opportunity and said, "Let's go and have a look." He also has an identity. It's the housekeeper, commanding the eunuchs and ladies of the imperial palace. But this identity, it was brought by him as Emperor Yuanjing's Osaka. The dotted deputy chief is the real person in charge. After all, the housekeeper is busy. It is simply impossible to serve the emperor all the time. Say goodbye to Chen Guifei. The old eunuch entered Nanxiang under the leadership of the palace maid. I saw a wolf lying on the bed with a pale face. The old eunuch Chun Xingdao has asked the imperial doctor to see it. The palace maid on the side replied back to her father-in-law. I saw the doctor and said it was encephalopathy. There is no cure. The old eunuch stared at the wolf for a long time. Tell the Daoists to hand it over to our family. He ordered the guards to take the wolf's corpse. Hurry back to your life. Return to Emperor Yuanjing's dormitory. The old emperor still sat upright. After the big case of laying the silk of the Ming emperor, he looked in the direction of the gate with a blank face. The old eunuch whispered, "Your Majesty." Langer died. Emperor Yuan Jing was silent. He sat motionless. Seems to be thinking. It's as if I've lost my mind. Until a long, long time later, Emperor Yuan Jing sighed. The next yin, Emperor Jing convened another court meeting. Hundreds of civil and military officials in the hazy sky entered the Golden Lawn Hall in an orderly manner. The Shangshu of the criminal department came out and said loudly, "Your Majesty, the verification has been completed. The queen is the mastermind of concubine Fu's case. Shangguan is unworthy. Murder of the concubine. Framing the prince. Please punish your majesty severely. Daoists immediately stepped forward to reconsider. Don't wait for Emperor Yuan Jing to express his position. Wei Yuan stood up for his majesty. Concubine Fu's case has other hidden secrets. The queen was not the mastermind. The real mastermind is Huang Xiaolu. He killed concubine Fu and deceived the prince to Qingfeng Hall to forge this case. Professional trolls have jumped out to refute a bunch of nonsense in their lifetimes. A mere palace maid can do such a shocking case. Besides, why did Huang Xiaolu frame the prince? Wei Yuan, what do you think of your majesty? What do you think of the temple lord? After speaking, I added a sentence to ask your majesty to behead. At this time, the rest of the ministers scolded Wei Yuan one after another. There was a lot of confusion in the temple. The old lady saw the whip in her hand. Fight for it. He scolded and was silent. For the eyes around you. Wei Yuan ignored it. Instead, he said slowly yesterday. The organizer of the non-case case of the Gong Xu Qian'an. It was found out that Huang Xiaoro had been pregnant. The words are not finished. The hall remembered the uproar again. The palace made Huang Xiaoro was pregnant. In addition to the guards in the palace. The only one who can really make a woman pregnant is Emperor Yuan Jing. Of course the guards couldn't. Those who can guard the harem are loyal to the royal family. The best of 1,000. And it's often a couple of people. Mutual supervision. There is no possibility of cheating with a palace maid. That's only one possibility. Emperor Yuan Jing's majestic face twitched slightly. Chun Shengdao, Wei Yuan said. Go down, Wei Yuan said slowly. It was found after tracking. Caused Huang Xiaoro to lose her pregnancy. For the official name of the uncle of the dynasty. Next, Wei Yuan told a story to the important ministers of the court. A story that has been polished by him. The palace maid Huang Xiaoro was humiliated by her uncle. Unfortunate pregnancy. Secretly miscarried afterwards. So he held a grudge. Forbearance for many years. Finally, a conspiracy hatched. With the convenience of concubine Fu's personal palace maid. He quietly destroyed the guardrail of the lookout. While concubine Fu was drunk, Huang deceived the prince to the Qingfeng Palace. Laid down the most appalling bureau in the harem for more than 10 years. After Uncle Guo heard about concubine Fu's case, found that Huang Xiaoro was implicated. For fear that his beast trip would be exposed. I asked for the 7th Duke of Feng. That's what I knew. Uncle Guo did such a thing that lost his conscience. Thinking of flesh and blood. Tearfully took the sin for Uncle Guo. Finally consolation. Make a summary of the case. That's how it happened. Uncle Guo has pleaded guilty. His Majesty may be arraigned at any time. Dali Siqing snorted coldly. It's ridiculous. Your Majesty is known to Wechen. Huang Xiaoro was killed. If everything was planned by him. What about the murderer? Wei Yuan's face did not change his expression. Huang Xiaoro also has the same party to help him lay out. In the name of framing the crown prince. Alluding to the queen. Your Majesty is pleased. There was another debate about the ministers. But in the end, they can only get back together. Your Majesty is pleased. Today's meeting is on the agenda. If Emperor Yuan Jing wants to end the concubine case, at this point the coffin can be closed. If you don't want to, you will be ordered to check again. Emperor Yuan Jing slowly said to Shangguan Ming cholera. The harem rebelled and beheaded. The queen did not report it. Same as it. But his thoughts are extremely bloody. Pardonable. It made the queen think about it behind closed doors. The March Prince did not know what to check. Drunk and broke into the hall of the breeze. Ordered to think behind closed doors. For half a year, Chen Guifei instigated the prince to get drunk. Cause a catastrophe. Reduced to a concubine. There was silence in the hall. The ministers were at a loss. Can't seem to figure it out. Why did the queen involved in the case think about March? The prince thought about it for half a year. And Chen Guifei, who has nothing to do with the ministers. Feng Guifei fell to the rank of concubine. That's 2 levels in a row. Could it be that this case is related to Chun Guifei? It wasn't long after the pilgrimage meeting ended. The old eunuch went to Fengqi Palace and Jinxiu Palace, respectively. When the queen learned about it, she cried bitterly. On the other side, Chun Guifei accepted the order with a stiff face. Wait for the old eunuch to leave. His face instantly became gloomy. At this time, he had already come to his senses. His Majesty's attitude has changed dramatically. Definitely related to yesterday. Yesterday, the old eunuch came over for no reason. On the grounds of condolences. There was nothing wrong with that. But I think of the changes in the court today. It's not hard to guess the mystery. His Majesty was suspicious of himself. And he was only exposed to Xu Qian'an. It is speculated from this. That bastard must have done some kind of trick in the dark. Hard work. It was planted in the hands of a small gong. He gritted his teeth. He slammed the decree in his hand to the ground. He shouted the names of the 2 people viciously. One is Wei Yuan. The other is naturally Su Bai's prostitute, who everyone shouts and beats. The day after the abolition ended, Xu Qian'an finally found his beloved little mare. This horse is a military horse reserved for the captain of the imperial sword. The second uncle got it at a low price through his own connections. After buying it, it didn't take many years to ride it and gave it to Zhiqi. This morning, Xu Qian'an accompanied his family to eat in the hall. Xiao Doubting is closed today and doesn't need to go to school. He couldn't have been happier. Breakfast is delicious. The aunt said with disgust. One day is like picking up a treasure. I've never had a stupid daughter like you in my life. Second Uncle Su complained about his young daughter. You only have 2 daughters in total. The aunt glared at him. There is also a face to say that Lining is so stupid. It's up to you. Xiao Doubting said aggrievedly. But I just don't want to study. Xu Qian'an said with a smile. Lining, you're not stupid. Don't listen to your mother's nonsense. Later when you don't want to study, you imagine you have 2 people in your head. Little Bean Ding was taken aback. 2 chubby hands over his head. I've got someone in my head. The corners of Xu Qian'an's mouth twitched. Imagine that Big Brother is talking about imagination. In order to better make him understand, Xu Qian'an simply stretched out 2 fingers and gestured. A villain doesn't want to read. Then the other villain is going to say that I like to read. I love to read. And so on. You love to read. Xu Qian'an commented with a slight sweat. Autosuggestion. I used to read hard. I'm really sleepy. It will imply that you don't want to sleep. It works well. When the aunt heard that she had her own son's endorsement, suddenly there is an expectation of the method of folding in half. Lenny, you try? The stupid little bean tilted his head and thought about it for a long time. Not slowly. A little guy in my head said he didn't want to read. Don't want to read. Another villain said. Yes, yes. Annie heard this. Really a little disheartened. Sue wife and comforted. Maybe she's really not fit to read. Annie, don't force it. The second uncle said suddenly. The day after tomorrow will be spring thunder. Su Xinyan not that gan li. He seemed to be confident in his composure look. Annie smiled and said with a bachelor of our Erlang. It's not a problem to get into the Jinshi. The time has come for the master Su Jiaguang to glorify his ancestors. Although Xu Qian is now highly appreciated by the committee members. And the princess again. But he's a martial artist after all. In this everything is inferior. Only the era of high reading. The title of the gold list is the matter of honoring the ancestors. In this regard, even Su Lingyue, who is biased towards the eldest brother. I also agree with my mother, thinks that the Su family wants to glorify their ancestors. It depends on the second brother's performance in the spring siege. Su wife and gritted her teeth. When will Takeo Cuttooth stand up? Can the world be better? Discrimination against Takefu is rife everywhere. Remember the conversation with Wei Yuan the day before yesterday. The martial arts system has been perfected and passed down from generation to generation. Only then did we have today's Jiupin. But to this day, the martial arts system did not come to an end. The path beyond the grade has not yet been explored. Therefore, the martial arts system does not have the existence of martial gods. It stands to reason that it shouldn't. The dancer system has the most people. Under a huge base, there will always be geniuses who will come out, accumulated from generation to generation. It is impossible not to produce the martial god. It's too early to think about it. I'm happy to be able to reach 4 grades in my life. After dinner, the second uncle took the saber and was about to go out. Xu Qian'an called out to him, "Wait, second uncle. You are the elder in the family. I have to stay at home today." Second Uncle Xu looked back blankly. "Is it a holiday today?" Xu Qian'an lifted his proud chin. "Today is not a holiday, but it was the day when the Xu family was glorious and glorious." Second Uncle Xu didn't react for a while. "The heart says that your son is the title of the gold list. It's going to have to be a month later." But Xu wife and just didn't say it. Shows a stinky fart expression. Annie's eyes are beautiful. Pouted and said, "Yo, yo, yo. Our eldest is an official and a knight, right?" As soon as he opened his mouth, he knew that it was an old yin and yang person. "I heard from my neighbors. Only those who read can be in the temple. No matter how you get promoted, no matter how you get promoted. It's just a part-time worker." Xu Qian squinted and despised his aunt. "I don't believe it," and my aunt said nonchalantly. "I believe in it, it's just a promotion." Xu Qian said in a deep voice. "Not a promotion." It was Aunt Fingjue who snorted. Laughed, laughing wildly. Coquettish. Second Uncle Xu waved his hand and was not angry. "Don't talk nonsense about the second uncle. I killed the enemy in Shanhaiguan County back then. Kill from south to north, and from the north to the south. Killed covered in blood. That's just a little bit away from being knighted." Xu Qian complained in his heart. "From Nansha to the north. Second uncle, don't your arms be sore?" At this time, Xu Xingyan shook his head. "The stakes are high. Dafeng was knighted for the last time. It was the Battle of Shanhaiguan 20 years ago. Now the world is flat. Where did you get your military exploits to be knighted?" Xu Qian touched Xiao Doubting's brain. "You don't have to be knighted, right?" Aunt Lin cut and walked. "Don't you know how many pounds and tails your aunt has? If you don't repair the tomb today, go to the yamen as soon as possible. It's almost over. Don't delay your second uncle's glory. The door is nothing. Don't worry about it, Dalong. After this year's spring our Xu family will have a jinsher. When the time comes, a feast will be held at home. Invite the people to come over for a meal." That's when it happened. The porter Lao Zhang hurried over. That panicked expression. It's as if there's a big worm chasing after him. "Grandma, Grandma. Grandpa has a holy decree." Su Pingji didn't hear clearly. "Holy what?" The porter Lao Zhang subconsciously replied with a holy decree. The decree of the knighthood. Xu Qian doesn't care so much. Pushing the second uncle out. "His Majesty's decree has come." Well, after the Fufei case ended yesterday, Wei Yuan told him, "The cabinet has prepared a decree for knighthood. It will be set today." Su Pingji walked from the inner courtyard to the outer courtyard. It's like going through most of my life. The mood at the moment is very complicated. He experienced a similar feeling once. That's the wedding night. Far away. Then he saw a eunuch in a python robe standing in the middle of the courtyard, holding a roll of imperial silk embroidered with a 5-clawed golden dragon in his hand. Decree gong. Xu Qian took the order. The second uncle took the lead in kneeling, then pulled Xu Qian to kneel together. The eunuch drought guard said loudly and carried it in the sky. The emperor said that I was a man of lofty ideals, to smell the relics of greed, and the commander of the army, the pillar of the imperial court, the stem of the state. Addicted Xu Qian even solved a strange case in Yunzhou, killed 200 rebels. Xu Qian is specially named as the son of Changle County. The third generation of the good field is yellow. Gold, 500 tales of this. Heard about the killing of 200 rebels. Xu Qian'an was stunned for a moment. The news said that I killed thousands of enemies. How did it become 200 people? Then it dawned on me. It turned out to be too much. I believed it all. Xu Qian'an shouted a slogan to thank His Majesty Longjin. Then get up and take the order. The python-robed eunuch smiled and said congratulations. Lord Xu, no. It's Xu Qianzi. Xu Qian received the holy decree. Hand over 100 taels of silver tickets. Thank you, father-in-law. Based on Xu Qian's sensible performance, there was not much left in the rice paper queue. Come in a hurry. It's also in a hurry. Second Uncle Xu took the holy decree and looked at it repeatedly for a long time. I don't know a few big characters, but I watched it seriously. A few laughs at the end. Jumping in. My Xu family has a viscount. Madam quickly wrote to the Xu clansman. The Xu family has a viscount. I'm going to feast on it. Baxter's 3 days and 3 nights. Xu Qian picked up a box of gold handed by Yuanjing. What a gas. Sneaking back to his room. The second uncle is stupid. The decree is more important than gold. Inside the inner courtyard, second Uncle Xu and Erlang are grabbing the holy decree. Father and son almost fought. Xu Erlang was displeased and said that he didn't know. I thought the decree was for you. Second Uncle Xu is a nurse. Hold the decree tightly in your arms. Roll on. Xu Erlang was slightly angry. Snorted coldly, secretly scolding the vulgar martial arts. The aunt looked at the holy decree in her husband's arms. Carslin's eyes widened. It's really crazy. Su Pingji was afraid that others would not believe in things. Loud and said, this is still false. There's a jade seal on it. His Majesty also gave him 500 taels of gold and 30 acres of fertile land. A golden glint flashed in her aunt's eyes. 500 taels of gold. 30 hectares of grain fields. He grabbed Xu Qian's hand. Is this true? How does my aunt feel like she is living in a dream? Xu Qian shook off this lady and said lightly, don't be close. Please call me Viscount. The adult is full of ants. Xu wife and took out the gold on the table from Tian wife's pie. I put it away myself. As for these 3 lives, Aunt Ryota, please. I'm married and started a family. I bothered Lin Yu to help my eldest brother take care of it. Annie's face suddenly darkened, because the smile was all transferred to Su Linyue's face. Annie's half-outstretched hand froze. She couldn't do anything about Xu Qian, stomping her foot and punching her husband. Second Uncle Su snorted Ning Yin. Lin Yu, who is joking with you, doesn't understand this. Su Linyue whispered softly and said to his father, I studied for a few years. I also know how to do arithmetic. My aunt suddenly had a sense of crisis. Her previous hypothetical hostility to Delang and Jiro's daughter-in-law. Only now have I found out. Su Lingyue, a dead girl, turned against her. Wants to fight for power with him, who was a mother. Su Lingyue felt that her mother's gaze was scorching. The voice is poignant. Why are you looking at me like that? And he didn't have a good breath. I didn't look at you. I'm looking at the white-eyed wolf. Speaking of the stargazing tower, in the eyes of the Jianghu people, in addition to towering into the sky, it is also a forbidden place for Daebong, because here lives the only strong man of the dynasty. Few people think about it. What is the place underneath the stargazing building? The dark underground iron door slowly rises. The harsh light outside broke through the darkness, reflecting a beautiful figure. He hasn't had an accident in 5 years. Has been suppressed at the bottom of the stargazing building. He slowly stood up. Duck out. Clear footsteps echoed all around. The man's shadow muttered to himself. I'm still a little short of the 4-rank formation. How did the teacher wake me up? Walk through the corridor on the 1st floor. The woman went up the stone steps. Go to the 2nd floor. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from overhead. One holds a tray. Inside the plate are bottles and jars of white-clad warlocks. Walk down. The two took a face-to-face. The white-clothed warlock froze. His face turned a little pale. It's like seeing something terrible. About 3 or 4 seconds. The white-clad warlock turned. Flee in a hurry. Women with good intentions hurriedly reminded the junior brother to slow down. Beware of slipping. The voice fell. The soles of the white-clad sorcerer's feet suddenly slipped. Grunt rolled down. The bottles and cans in the tray were shattered. A green morning mist fills the air. The white-clad warlock's face contorted instantly. Struggled to say help. This is a poison that is sent to the senior brother to refine. Not long with the help of a woman. The white-clad warlock takes the antidote. He crawled to the window on the second floor. His face was extremely resolute. Towards the lobby on the first floor, the white-clad sorcerers who are the main alchemists. Shout the bell. Senior sister is out of customs. Bangzang. Porcelain vases and spoons in the hands of white-clad sorcerers. Falling to the ground, they twisted their necks stiffly. The face looked blankly. The woman with her hair continued to climb the stairs. When passing by the 7th floor, the alchemy on the 7th floor exploded with a bang. The roar of sending relatives resounded through the world. How to blow up? The woman ignored it. Continue upstairs. I finally came to the gossip platform on the top of the stargazing building. The woman respectfully called out to the teacher. The prison is long and long. Your time has come to promote to the 4th grade. The woman's body shuddered. Raise your head slightly, revealing a snow-white pointed chin. Dafeng's heterosexual taste is divided into 5 grades. The prince did not forget this. Each rank is divided into 5 grades. Xu Qian'an's full title is the 3rd class Chang'e. This is a title that is more than enough than the top. There is no real power either. It's just one more crack. But the meaning of a knighthood is not in power. Rather, it is the glory and social status that he symbolizes. A symbol of the true, eternal commoner among the aristocracy. It is a hereditary net substitute title. Of course, Xu Qian'an's title cannot be hereditary. But at least he had one day. The Xu family is an aristocrat. No more civilians. In the future, Chang'e will marry. A commoner woman is the wife. Bei Shizhong will fold the bullet and impeach him. The Manchu dynasty civil and military will say that the princess is not fragrant. It's still not pretty. Marry a commoner woman. In short, the Xu family had a viscount for the first time in hundreds of years. Completely got rid of Ming too. Rise to the nobility. For Xu Pingji, the head of the family. It's probably the brightest moment of my life. On the same day, he took Xu Qian to the ancestral grave to offer incense. When I come back, I plan to send out invitations widely. Feast. Invite friends and family to celebrate with a drink. But my aunt felt that it was inappropriate. Some worriedly said that the day after tomorrow is the spring curtain. This will affect Erlang's reading. Xu Pingji felt that what his wife said made sense. So he asked Su Erlang to move to the old house in the outer city. Read well. It is inconvenient to feast for a long time. Xu Qian came back with incense for the generous appropriation of 70 taels of silver as a fund for tomorrow's banquet. 70 taels is already a lot. Many of them are ordinary Yin families. 3 years of savings without eating or drinking is a hook. 2 years of prostitution. It is his Xu Qian's current salary for 1 year. He thought about it again. Came back for so long. I haven't been to Master Hing Yuan's health hall yet. I had to send some money to help the widows and orphans. By the way, he prostituted Hing Yuan's body, refining exercises. Suddenly, he remembered the ethereal voice on the God's bookcase. Leave the capital. Xu Qian's expression was serious. What do you mean? This old bald donkey never took the initiative to communicate with me, silently sleeping inside me. Now he asked me to leave the capital. It's the capital that's going to have an accident. Or I'm going to have an accident. All kinds of thoughts flickered. He saw the gray world before his eyes. This monk of mysterious origin meditates with his hands folded. The brown eyes look gently. The sound is ethereal. Leave the capital. Xu Qian'an is really fierce. Lao Tzu has just returned from the resurrection of Yunzhou. Set up a palace and sealed the title. The relationship with Linen and Huiqing has grown by leaps and bounds. Wei Yuan also promised to promote me too. Whether it's a future or a future, it must be a love scene, are steadily improving. Predictable. In a few more years. Became a duke. Marry the princess. Walk to the top of your life. It is also a very possible thing. Master, you're embarrassed by my fat tiger. Xu Qian'an frowned and asked, why did the master leave the capital? The monk looked in a certain direction. I can sense that the Western religion is coming. Xu Qian'an corrected the Western religion. What the monk of the divine book said should not be the Buddhism of the Western regions. Sambo, when it was dark, the Panshu monk of Qinglong Temple learned that the master of the divine book was out of trouble, when even leaving the temple to the west. In this way, the people of Buddhism came to Xingshi to ask for sin. No wonder the divine book wants me to leave the capital. In case the big bald head to the west finds out, the book of God is in my body. I might really be crushed under the Five Fingers Mountain for 500 years. Xu Qian's face showed a certain amount of worry. That's why you asked me to leave the capital for a while. The monk nodded slowly. The meaning is already obvious. Xu Qian sighed. Well, we're grasshoppers on a rope now. That's right, master. I heard that Buddhism has a magical method of refining the body. You don't need to temper your body to cultivate into a Vajra indestructible body. Can you teach me? The divine book monk shook his head. I'm just a remnant. The corners of Xu Qian's mouth twitched. I don't know if you're a remnant. All I know is that you want to prostitute me for nothing. You just wanted to complain? Surrounded by a thin haze and cages. Behind wrapping the dilapidated temple. Fade away. Xu Qian returned to the room. You don't have to think about it to know. The Western region's Buddhism is a monk who came from the divine book. It's been more than a month. At most, they look at the dossier. Find out what happened to the case. It's impossible to stay in the capital for too long. Then my departure from Beijing is only temporary. It doesn't even take long to get back. That's the case. I'm still okay with that. Think of it as a vacation to rest and rest. Go to a city of abundance. After a few days, the rich man withered. Dry life, on the contrary, it is difficult to write a leave note. Left Beijing for no reason. The system of the yamen is not allowed. That's right. Discuss with the old silver coin of the golden Liandao chief. Let him think of a reason casually. For example, handing over a book. Someone in the chat group is in trouble. Need my support. But before that, there is still some finishing to do. For example, attending tomorrow's wine party. For example, I want to explain that the jailer is optimistic about the couple. Can Erlang stay in Beijing after the spring siege? It's all up to them. Another example is to try it. How did Wei Yuan plan to take revenge on Chen Guifei? Unless the case is closed. But Liangzi is finished. Wei Yuan wanted to find out the forces behind Chen Guifei. There will definitely be follow-ups. And the queen lost her only residence. I'm afraid I won't be in the Buddhist lineage anymore. Emperor Yuanjing's harem is bound to start a bloody storm between women I care about. How fierce will their war be? I don't want to wait until I get back. I heard that Chen Guifei is gone, or the queen boomed. If so, Linen and Huiqing will be like fire and water. It's not destined to be sisters. I'm a prostitute. The dream of a threesome on the shore of Daming Lake. It's almost shattered. At this time, the porter Lao Zhang came to the door. Shout Dalong. See Tianjin's Kaiwei girl visits Xu Qian. A testimony of what he came to do. But it's been a long time since I've seen this girl. Manager Chu Kaiwei carefully put down the pastry, as if these were some kind of treasure. Suddenly, a small child appeared at some point, stared at him. The big-eyed beauty still remembers that he is a very hungry child. Take whatever you want to eat. Sister has a lot of them here. Little Bean Ding is overjoyed. His eyes instantly turned into a small heart. Then the big snacks coexist peacefully. You eat yours. I eat mine. Happiness knows no bounds. But I ate and ate. Chu Kaiwei suddenly noticed that something was wrong. This girl eats faster than I do. No, it's too much of a loss. I gotta eat faster too. Xiao Doubting took a look. This sister suddenly eats quickly. Obviously, trying to grab food with yourself. So the movements of the hands also accelerated a lot. The big-eyed cute girl once again fell behind. At the same time, I was also shocked by the speed at which the little guy was eating. There was no communication between the two during the whole process. But the war between foodies is quickly heating up. Xu Qian'an came to the back hall. I was stunned when I saw this scene. She glanced at Xiao Doubting's round belly. Pull him aside. Look left and right. Hey, you can't eat like that. Annie is not in the hall. It is estimated that tomorrow's banquet will be arranged. Otherwise, I will definitely not let Xiao Doubting eat in such a way. Little Bean Ding struggled. Said he was in a hurry. Cauldron. The water chestnut cake is so delicious. Xu Qian was really speechless. Eat, you can't die. He pointed to the pastries on the paper table. I don't remember to put it away. Then send the little bean out to play. That's when you sit down. The indifferent tone of the Dao Kaiwei girl. What's the matter? Chu Kaiwei repacked the remaining pastries. A deerskin that is placed around the waist. Teacher Xiaobao, let me invite you to the stargazing tower. Xu Qian frowned secretly. The traitor invited me to the stargazing tower. Okay. Anyway, I can't figure out how many layers this old silver coin is. Come to me on the first floor. The traitorous government is clear in his heart. The two went out of the Su mansion together. Chu Kaiwei held mahjong. I shouted that those pastries were bought by senior sister Wu on behalf of me. As a result, I was eaten by your sister. Su Ningyan, you have to compensate me for the silver. Xu Qian sighed twice. Talking about silver hurts feelings. The affection between us is not something that can be measured by silver. With that, a horsewoman rushed out. I didn't forget to remind me to say goodbye to the supervisor for a long time. It's 4 days. Seeing Xu Qian as a pastry has never happened. Not waiting at all. Chu Kaiwei entered the building with ease. It's just that she found the lobby on the first floor empty today. Xu Qian wondered, why is Si Tianjian so lonely today? Heard Xu Qian's words. A white-clothed doctor at the door replied to Su Gongzi. They all went to the hospital for consultation. Xu Qian frowned and asked what day it was. The white-clothed doctor smiled. There was no answer. Xu Qian went upstairs in confusion. On the 7th floor, it was found that the alchemy room had been bombed. Alchemists who were very active on weekdays. I couldn't see a single figure. The two arrived at the gossip platform smoothly. The first thing to see is the strong back. White-clothed and white-haired sat on the edge of the gossip table, facing the building. Then he saw a woman sitting next to Jianzheng. Eat and drink at the desk. The reason why Xu Qian judged that he was a woman, mainly when the man is lying on his stomach. The outlined hips will not be so plump and round. Chu Kaiwei carried a few boxes of pastries and put them on the table. Push it to the woman who was sitting at the desk and eating wildly. The woman glanced sideways. Some displeased said so little. Chu Kaiwei shook the pot a little. Dice beans are eaten by a stupid child. The woman nodded. Keep eating. This time, Xu Qian came back to his senses. I remembered a conversation with Wei Yuan. The superintendent has 5 disciples. 5 of them are in retreat all year round. Those who don't know Si Tianjian think. Si Tianjian only has 1 female disciple, Chu Kaiwei. Presumably, this is the 5th senior sister. At this time, the voice of the supervisor sounded. How is this knife used? Xu Qian's public voice is very useful. Thank you, Lord Governor. At the same time, he is a bandit in his heart. Isn't this knife just a slash for my heaven and earth? Tailor-made. Isn't it all in your calculations? Meant to say some nonsense. The trader asked again how effective the rebirth pill was. Xu Qian thought very well. It's a big change in appearance. It's a little bothering me. It's not as low-key as I used to be. Zheng nodded. That's a laugh. I can help you get it back to the way it was. Xu Qian hurriedly waved his hand. Don't dare to bother. It's correct. In fact, it's very good now. Zheng nodded slowly. Pull the conversation away. Zhongli is my 5th disciple. 5-rank prophet. He'll go through it with you for a while. Chu Kaiwei was stunned. Glanced at the superintendent. He turned his head and looked at Xu Qian again. Xu Qian was also a little confused. It turns out that the warlock has 5 products. Teach the prophets. But why go through it with me for a while? Xu Qian said tentatively. Do you know why? The superintendent did not answer his question. Shouted a bell left. The woman in the robe stood up. He bowed to Xu Qian. Teacher, you said you were lucky. With you, my bad luck will be reduced to a certain extent. You are my chance. Xu Qian stared at his face. I couldn't help but ask rhetorically. Doom only worded for a moment. Prophets can spy on the heavens. Attacked by the heavenly Tao. Doom haunts. Only after carrying 3,600 tribulations can you be promoted. If you can't carry it, you will die. But those who can withstand the backlash of the heavenly Tao, they're all people with great luck. Listen to Zhongli's explanation. Xu Qian first thought of 2 things. The first is to finally understand. Why are there so many 6th grade alchemists in 4 days? And above the 6 grades, he had only seen one Miriam Yang. The second thing, the emperor is actually a man of great luck. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Xu Qian said curiously. What is the form of heavenly Tao retaliation? I'll have to assess how terrible the so-called backlash is. After all, I'm just a mediocre child. He was right. The prison knows his strange luck. Zhongli thought for a moment. Misfortune comes out of the mouth. Sometimes I inadvertently make a statement. Will be transformed into a real disaster. Implicate those around you, including myself. Sometimes an unintentional move. It will also invite unforeseen disasters. And the size is none. Law control may just be a step back. It will lead to a catastrophe of life and death. As he spoke, he symbolically took a half step back. It's just such a simple action. The unexpected happened. A dignified 5-grade powerhouse. The soles of my feet slipped. Fell from the gossip platform. This is outrageous. Open the door outrageously. Outrageous to home. Xu Qian's face changed greatly. Instinctively shouted. Save people at the same time. Xu Qian's mind. Uncontrollably drifting over a lyric. The action of taking a half step back. Seriously. Small movements. The damage is still so great. Firm sigh. Reached out with his hand under the wide sleeve. Lifted gently. Zhongli, who fell from the building, was instantly wrapped in a gas machine. The falling figure also escaped at the same time. Then he was caught and shot. Escaped the fate of falling to his death this time. He kept his head down. The tone was calm. Actually, if you are prepared, even if you jump from the stargazing tower, I won't get hurt either. But I don't know why. The mind is in a mess. There is no thought of saving himself. If someone else intervenes to help me settle the bad words, it doesn't work. You can only do it if you have been tested yourself. Xu Qian nodded suddenly. I understood the real reason why the supervisor invited him over. That's why I need to be the emperor. To help your non-chieftain. Keep your bad luck to a minimum. Come to think of it. He shook his head in refusal. I'm sorry, I'm going to deviate from it. There is key handling. It's inconvenient to take people with you. Suddenly I was talking on my fingers. A glass of wine flew up in the air on the table. Xu Qian'an subconsciously reached out to pick it up. It seems that I have known for a long time that this is for myself. At the same time as I took it, a sound sounded in his ears. If he drinks it, he doesn't have to leave his period. Xu Qian drank the wine in his glass. There is also a corresponding speculation. The trader knows why I want to leave Beijing. Sure enough, he knew that the divine book monk was in my body. Liquor is a regular liquor. But how is he going to help me? Suddenly, his expression froze. A bold idea came to mind, shielding the celestial warlock's specialty. The capital is thousands of miles away from Yunzhou, the military camp outside the White Emperor's city. Alluring the country and the city, Su commanded a group of ghosts to help pack it. Softly called the master. It's all packed. Li Miaojin sweated slightly. Open the sachet tied around your waist. A swirling sharp gushing out. More than a dozen ghosts in the general's tent were shot into it. Susung, what up, iti? You still haven't been able to break through to the 4-rank realm. Otherwise, the level of the disciples of Renzong. There will be no opponent for you. Li Miaojin sigal plesli. I've been stuck in the Jinan realm for 2 whole years. The reason is so easy to cultivate. At this time, the bandits in Yunzhou had been cleared up. Li Miaojin cooperated with the Yunzhou local army and 2 golden gongs. Conquer the mountains, flatten the largest stockades. There are dozens of small cottages. Of course, the bandits in Yunzhou are like a bound body. It has thrived on this land for hundreds of years. It's not that you can exterminate it if you exterminate it. In a few years, it will come back again. The results at hand are the limits of what local armies can do. But Yunzhou has been able to settle down for several years. Li Miaojin is very satisfied with this result. Next, he's going to do his own thing. The battle between heaven and man. Heavenly sect and human sect. It has to be discussed every other year. Before that, the outstanding disciples of the younger generation of the 2 sects were the first to collide. Warm up for the battle between heaven and man. Li Miaojin is one of the disciples of this generation of Tianzong, one of the most prominent figures. The other is Li Miaojin's senior brother. He is also a member of the Heaven and Earth Society, holding a fragment of the number 7 handbook. But that guy was prostituted in the Northeast and lost contact. Su suddenly said that it was a pity. That nasty rotten egg has fallen. Of course, you can help me investigate the Su family's murder case. Li Miaojin looked at the one who grew up with her. In her heart moves. Actually, Su's home is not. In the capital, that guy even wants to check. It is also impossible to leave the capital. Traveled thousands of miles to investigate an old case. Su himself understood this truth. But he always talked about it from time to time. It seems to be a pity to destroy the case. In fact, I regret this stinky and shameless man. Li Miaojin sighed in her heart. So you have to be too forgetful, dear. There is a sad and terrible death. Lovers change their minds. Resentment is intertwined. The 7 emotions and 6 desires in the world are all fire. How else to say that love is not long? Only ruthlessness can last forever. Leave the military tent with Su. More than 400 Fian troops gathered in the square, quietly waiting for the soldiers to unload their armor. Li Miaojin slowly swept over the soldiers. At this time, some changed into civilian clothes. Some wore coarse linen clothes. Some dressed like rich men. Others are as tattered as beggars. That's what they were meant to be. The Swifts are a ragtag army. Members come from all over the world. Among them were the beggars. There are prodigal sons from all over the world. There are also thieves who rob the rich and help the poor and so on. They are all gathered in Yunzhou because of one talent. Organize into an army. That person's name is Swift Woman. Now Li Miaojin is leaving. Naturally, this army was dispersed. After the end of the banditry, Yangtze River privately looked for Li Miaojin. I want to bring the Fian army into the regular army. Cultivate into the ace army of Yunzhou. Hopefully, he can convince the soldiers of the Fian army to stay in Yunzhou. No one wanted to stay. Li Miaojin took a deep breath. Lang said that it has been more than a year. We are in this together. Hundreds of cottages, large and small. Thousands of bandits were killed. Where we have passed, the people were able to recuperate, not afraid of the place where we pass. Merchants were able to trade. Raising a family is where we live. The light of justice swayed down. Li Miaojin thanked all the brothers for their unwavering companionship. However, there is no feast in the world. Trip to Yunzhou. And I'm going to keep going. You should also go home and be with your family and friends. Life is a long road, or bumpy or smooth, or sad and joyful. I hope you will remember the time in Yunzhou. Don't forget your original intention. Speaking of which, Li Miaojin watched the 400 soldiers clench their fists. A sonorous voice. But do good deeds. Don't ask about the future. 400 soldiers clasped their fists and saluted. That's what they're willing to be loyal to. A swift woman who is willing to follow. At the same time, the southern Xinjiang side. The reason why the Gu people are called Manchus, it's not that they drink blood, it's that they're grain-based. The cultivation system and living habits are all in line with the grain worm. In this way, the grain worm can be cultivated. Same words as the ancients. To put it in a better way, the development of the ancient people is based on the ancient standard, hence the degree of civilization. It cannot be compared with countries such as the human-oriented Dafeng. The civilizational gap manifests itself in various aspects. The most obvious of these is culture and architecture. The ancient people still use the hieroglyphs of the ancient times. The buildings are mainly yellow mud houses and grass houses. Pottery was used instead of porcelain. However, the ancient people in southern Xinjiang are good at growing mulberry and raising silkworms. The quality of the collected silk is several times higher than that of Dafeng, but they are not good at weaving. Therefore, it is often used by the merchants of Taiho. Purchase high-quality silk at a low price, or barter with ready-made fabrics. Basan stretches for hundreds of miles. The product is abundant. Down the hill is a fertile soil, dense rivers. The base camp of the ancient capital is here. They have cultivated thousands of hectares in this plain. Some of the clansmen are engaged in farming. A part of the tribe hunts. There are no foreign objects between them. Moizan returned from hunting with a pair of sons. Lena, Amaya's mother-in-law. Yesterday, I sent Snow Eagle to send a message for you to see him today. Why are you still grinding here? Lena was visibly stunned. Then he patted his brain. Oops, I forgot. Mozen, why didn't you remind me earlier? Lena hurriedly got up and ran to the Tengu division. Mo saw this. Hurriedly shouted. The dam in the Tenya department is missing a crossing. Remember to help fix it. Compared to Rikub, Tiangabu is more like the county seat of a certain Dafeng dynasty. It's a bit rudimentary, though. But get rid of the thatched hut. It is dominated by yellow mud houses and brick houses. The Tengu cloth was built at the foot of the Luoxia mountain. From the foot of the mountain to the mountainside, patches of terraced rice fields are lined up one after another. There's a dam on the mountain. Yesterday, a sudden embankment was dug, and the terraces were destroyed. At this time, Granny Amadani noticed Lena. Beckoned to her. Lena's light pleasure among the rocks. Come to Granny Tenya, said her mother-in-law coquettishly. But then I noticed it. There seems to be something in the field, although the danger was not perceived. But he couldn't help but wonder what kind of monster it was. Granny Tengu smiled kindly. That's pride. I don't know where it came from. Ruined big. Washed away all the seedlings that had just been planted in the tribe. Lena saw the reef for the first time, but heard of such monsters. It lives in the densely intertwined waters of southern Xinjiang, scurrying along the underground river. One of his uncles. It is said that the paddling stone was eaten by the reef. At this time, Granny Tenani said, You help collect some rocks. Plug the gap as soon as possible. But the coolie Lena is the best. He ran away. Less than half an hour. The crowd heard dull footsteps. Seek prestige. A rocky mountain is slowly moving. This stone mountain is more than 20 zhang high. Throwing it in the reservoir can set off stormy waves. The stone mountain was not moved by itself. It was carried by Lena, just compared to a 20 zhang boulder. He was as small as an ant. The faces of the people of the heavenly ancient department did not change. It seems that I have long been accustomed to it. Drum foot in 7 tribes. Ligabu is known for his strange powers. Lena's father, Long Tuna, is the real Banshan. When the war with Dafeng was in place, he carried a mountain and threw an army. Thousands of people were killed directly. The boulder slowly moved to the vicinity of the dam. Lena put him down. Then there was a boom. Everyone stood on the dam and looked down. I saw Lena slowly wrapping around her waist. Steady and steady. Suddenly, Shushi roared in black. A punch punches on the surface of the boulder. Click. Cobweb-like cracks appear on the surface of the boulder and spread rapidly. It fell apart in an instant, reduced to pieces of rubble. Plugging the gap. Lena's help. The materials for repairing the dam are available. There is no need for the people of the Tenya department to collect it hard. Significant time and labor savings. Leave the tribesmen to tinker a lot. Granny Amaya takes Lena down the mountain. Return to his residence. Granny Amaya takes Lena straight into the house. Take out a wooden box from the cabinet. This is the 7 unique bones practiced by the mother-in-law's wife. Before he left, this bone is only half trained. Mother-in-law used it for 20 years. It's finally done. I'll leave it to you for safekeeping. There was a snap as he spoke. The box opens. Inside lay a white jade-like bug. Lena was a little surprised. Give it to me. Granny Tingu shook her head. Not for you. It is entrusted to you for safekeeping. You will give it to someone who is destined for it in the future. A string of question marks flashed through Lena's mind. She didn't understand what was going on. Suddenly, he was given 7 absolute bones. Also asked her to hand it over to someone who was destined. Granny Tingu said, "Remember, did your mother-in-law tell you the story of those 2 thieves?" Lena nodded vigorously. Granny Tingu's eyes showed a complicated look. There is a legend in the Tengu division. The day of Siri's recovery. The whole of southern Xinjiang and even Kyushu will be reduced to a valley of the world. Although the Gu people survive by raising grain and practicing grain. But the valley is just a tool. We are still human. As for the legend of Siri's, nor is it alarmist. It is the end of the performance of the Tengu department from generation to generation. To get a glimpse of this future, many seniors have been counterattacked by heaven in order to keep the series asleep. 20 years ago, the old man thought of a way to do it. He was going to steal something, use it to suppress series, let him sleep for generations to come. So he left southern Xinjiang. There has been no news since. It wasn't long before the valley of Hanmei, where he had remained in the tribe, withered. I found out he was dead. Lena's eyes sparkled with curiosity. What was stolen? Granny Tingu shook her head. The voice is kind. My mother-in-law is old. Can't stand the backlash of heaven. Granny Tingu stared at him with burning eyes. Last night I got a glimpse of a change in fate. Something is going to happen to that thing. Lena, you're involved too. Lena blinked. I can't understand that I am an ordinary child. How did it appear in the story of mother-in-law Tenya? Granny Tingu added, let's go to the capital. You've cultivated enough. It's just a lack of experience. Just take this opportunity to go for a walk in the world. I have consulted with your father about this. He agreed. Lena was first ill. Go to the capital. He reached for the wooden box in his hand. I found myself not too resistant to such things. The first thing that came to his mind was number 3 and number 1, and the Golden Lotus Daoist. This makes me want to go to the capital even more. It's noon. The warm sun hangs in the sky. The Su mansion was filled with laughter. Xu Qian'an originally just coped with things. But I heard everyone shouting at the same time as congratulating and shouting enlightened adult. Suddenly I fell in love with the feeling. At this time, the fat-headed and big-eared county magistrate said with emotion, "The officer has a niece, 2 years old, quite handsome. I originally wanted to be married to you. Now it seems that it is not possible." Wang Zhudu smiled and picked up Chan Ningyan is now conscious. Worthy of her. There are only ladies and daughters of wealthy families. Lu Qing, who was at the next table, listened to it. I feel very uncomfortable, melancholy, and gloomy. Originally, she was the head catcher of Huya. It is more than enough to match a watchman, and it belongs to peers. It's a match made in heaven. But Su's wife is sealed. After that, he became a member of the nobility. You definitely can't marry a female catcher as a wife. This does not make sense. Think about it this way. Lu Zhutu felt even more uncomfortable. There were tears in his eyes. Feel free to regret that you used to be too reserved. So much so that I missed the good relationship. A feast did not disperse until a quarter of a while. Xu Qian'an and second Uncle Su were responsible for sending off guests. The aunt commanded her subordinates to clean up the mess. 3 moments. Su Erlang came back with his servants and maids. Annie deserves to be her own mother. Instructed the cook to heat a table of leftovers from noon for Erlang. Jiro had a good rest after eating. I have to get up early tomorrow to take the exam. Xu Qian suddenly said that Erlang will be tested. Su Erlang ate while eating, while briefly introducing the experience of side questioning. The poem paused. He added, starting with the first emperor. Poetry was removed from the imperial examination. Until the 11th year of Yuanjing, Wang Zhenwen entered the cabinet. Under his push, poetry is back in the imperial examination. If the eldest brother participates in the imperial examination, don't say anything else. At least it can revive the poetry scene. Turning to his father. Yo-Yo rode since the end of last year. The eldest brother became famous in the poetry world. Dad is also becoming famous. Su Pingji showed joy. Ha laughs. In fact, Dalang himself is talented. As a father, he didn't train these scholars much. I just like to make a big fuss. How they praise me. The corners of Su Xinyan's mouth picked up and praised you for not being benevolent. Su Pingji slapped the table angrily. How could it be reasonable? Why do they say that about me? Su Erlang laughed, the more the eldest brother did. Dad, the more infamous you are. Maybe you will go down in history in the future. That same evening, Su Pingji was so sad that he couldn't sleep. The aunt scolded that the Taoist was not dead. You think about fame in a few hundred years. Blindly worried about Su Pingji's snorted woman's Ji. See that Erlang has the posture of the capital. Dalang will also be able to leave a mark in history in the future. Later generations commented on them. We'll boast. But when you come to me, you shouldn't be a benevolent. For words, Aunt muttered. That's good to leave a name in history. By the way, I'll tell you something. What will Jiro do if he is sent abroad in the future? Can you find a way to keep him in the capital? Su Pingji said helplessly. Don't even think about it. He is a student of Yunlu Academy. Expatriation is inevitable. Let's hope it's not too far away. Students of Yunlu Academy basically miss the center of power in the officialdom of the capital. Most of them will be distributed to various parts of the state. Even if you stay in the capital, it's just a petty official. Aunt Xiaomei confided. Why don't you go to Yanyan and talk about it? He's a watchman. Also know the princess. There must be a way. Su Pingji lowered his voice and said, This is the business of the ministry. What does it have to do with the watchman? Beat the watchman and supervise hundreds of officials. The most hated by civil officials. Ning Yin stepped forward. It's counterproductive. Shen Sheng heard this. The tight brows couldn't be let go at all. I panicked. He sat down on the bed. Hug your knees. Not a glance. On the other side, there was a knock on the door of the wing. Su Xinyan, who was about to fall asleep, heard a knock on the door. When I opened the door, I saw Xu Qian standing outside the door. Some people are unhappy that the eldest brother asked me for a trial. Xu Qian looked at the red lips and white teeth. Handsome and worry-free little brother. Grinned. Guess the question. Xu Qian heard what he said. I could only reluctantly invite my eldest brother in. Unhurriedly, he poured a cup of hot water for the eldest brother. That's when he said that there was no need to guess the question. Several great scholars in the academy have already helped us overcome the question. Xu Qian nodded slowly. What about poetry? Xu Qian frowned and replied that the poem was not considered. I'm not good at poetry, Xu Qian said with a smile. Be prepared. The eldest brother came here to guess the poems. The corners of Xu Qian's mouth twitched. How is the big brother going to guess? Xu Qian smiled mysteriously. Draw lots for the new year and put a piece of rice paper. Cut into a dozen small squares. Write on it the mane of flowers, birds, fish, insects, etc. The question is then randomly drawn. Come on, big brother. Xu Qianqing felt that the eldest brother was messing around. But see him so zealous. It's hard to refuse. I just want to send the annoying big brother away quickly. He sleeps well. Xu Qian closed his eyes. Grab it. Xu Qianqing found that the eldest brother had grabbed two strips of paper. Xu Qian took a picture of the note. 2 is 2. One more should be used as a backup. As he spoke, he unfolded the note. They are brave and wise and patriotic. Xu Qian looked at the eldest brother with some expectation, because his ingredients are still very appetizing. Tonight is finally a feast for the eyes. But Xu Qian scratched his head. He looked extremely embarrassed. In the end, I could only sigh helplessly. He couldn't remember the poems on the subject for a while. I can only go back and think about it. Xu Qian was extremely disappointed. The resentment towards the eldest brother in my heart deepened a little. I went back to my room. Xu Qian lit the candle. Sit at the table, glancing up at the beams. Aren't you a prophet? Can't you directly predict the topic of spring? On the beam of the house lay a woman with a disheveled head, dressed in a simple robe. Replied lightly, the prophet must know how to keep his orders. I'm not a man of great luck. Once leaked, spring is the exam question. Maybe tomorrow will be reimbursed for life and death. Xu Qian instigated, I will protect you. Didn't the superintendent say that I was a man of great luck? Zhongli Danan said, since you are a person with great luck, then the question you draw lots must be Chuanwei's exam questions. And why should I take any chances? Xu Qian thought for a moment. It seems that this is indeed the truth. He asked again, why he didn't let me guess again. And the experience, Zhongli said more singly. The easier it is to guess correctly. Xu Qian didn't speak. Scraping the belly. Thinking about the poems I learned in junior high school. Even after so many years, some of the poems are still vividly imprinted in my mind. Yongji's most famous should be Cao Cao's turtle, although longevity. But considering Emperor Yuanjing's desire for immortality, I am afraid that writing this poem will be disgusted by Emperor Yuanjing. There are quite a few patriotic poems. It's a patriotic poem in my memory. They were all born when the country was ruined. What Iron Horse Glacier came into a dream. What a country is broken in. What businesswoman doesn't know the hatred of the country? It's hard to in the middle of the night. Sue's wife slept soundly. Suddenly, I heard a muffled thud. And then, it was the sound of some hapless woman snorting. He woke up suddenly. Subconsciously hold down the saber next to the bed. Zhongli endured the pain and said sorry. Fell. The corners of Xu Qian's mouth twitched. This can also fall. You're a 5-rank warlock. He often exhales a cloudy breath. It's okay, and that's part of the bad luck. This upright 5 disciples say poignant things in a bland tone. That's pretty good, if not by your side. I'm afraid I'm going to break my leg. Sorry for waking you up. Su Weifan asked. I'm fine, but you're not hurt. Zhongli struggled to his feet. It's okay, I'm used to it anyway. After speaking, he got up silently and walked to the door. I went outside to meditate. Doesn't disturb your sleep. Xu Qian'an watched him leave, rolled over, and went back to sleep. As a result, the door opened again. Zhongli is back. Suki sai. Express your confusion and dissatisfaction. Zhongli said in a low voice, I don't know which one lacks virtue. Throw the orange peel in the corridor. I accidentally stepped on it. Fell. The head is broken. I think it's safer to be in the house. Xu Qian'an was immediately full of sympathy. Orange peel is also slippery. It was a miserable next day. The sky was just dawning. The aunt personally helped Su Erlang clean up the pen and ink, paper inkstones, and other examination items, as well as pastries, jerky, and water eaten in the exam room. Xu Qian'an hurriedly stopped his mother. You don't have to bring so much food. Only one day is required. Dust came out. There are 3 attempts, 1 test at a time. Each session is spaced 3 days apart. It lasted 9 days. When you are ready, Su Pingji took his wife and daughter with him. There is also a nephew who sent Su New Year to the tribute courtyard together. Xu Qian'an, who didn't sleep well all night. He handed over 2 notes. Jiro, this is a poem written by the eldest brother. A few minutes after the month, Xu Qian'an took it quietly unfolded and watched for a long time. I couldn't help but praise a good poem in my heart. If you can really guess the question, you may be able to shine. After Xu Qian'an wrote it down, shred the strip of paper, I was about to say goodbye to my family and enter the exam room. Suddenly, I heard someone chanting the Buddha's name not far away. He was a little puzzled, because it seems to be coming at itself. Xu Qian'an looked back. It was found to be a burly and bald head. I put my hands together. He smiled darkly at himself. Xu Qian'an's heart flashed with doubts. Do I know him? But he still smiled back politely. Watching Jiro line up to the tribute courtyard, Auntie and Lin Yu proposed to return to sleep. Xiao Doubting did not agree very much. Now that it's all out, he proposed to go to Guiyue Tower for breakfast. It's just that his proposal was unanimously ignored by everyone. Xu Qian'an was still thinking about Zhongli in the house. I'm afraid I'll go back later. He is dead. Return to Shifu City, east and west. Xu Qian'an pushed open the door, seeing Zhong Lapon sitting on the couch. Why does this woman always wear her hair loosely? I don't know what it looks like. The disciples of the traitorous government feel weird. On the contrary, it is the most normal foodie girl. Xu Qian'an cleared his throat. You don't have to hide it. I can introduce you to my family. Zhongli said that this would bring bad luck to your family. There will be no big trouble, but small troubles keep coming. Bad luck affects the people around you all the time, and they didn't know I existed. Not to be avoided. Xu Qian'an heard this. I was struck all over. That's still it. When the time comes, the chickens and dogs will jump at home. It's really not good. It's still far from the hour. Xu Qian'an planned to spit out for a moment. Suddenly, there was a palpitation. At this time, someone in the uncle's chat group was bubbling. Xu Qian'an asked Zhongli if you can turn around. Zhongli turned around obediently. Meditate with your back to him. Xu Qian'an found out the fragment of his uncle. I complained in my heart. It's inconvenient to have one more person. Li Miaojin sent a message. I'm going to the capital. The Golden Lotus Dao chief, who rarely bubbles, was the first to reply. Xiao Fei is over. Su Qi was relieved of his heart. Xiao Fei is over. It's time for them to come back. Li Miaojin said. Yes, the Taoist. That's right. You haven't given me any information about the younger generation of disciples of Renzong. At the beginning, he exchanged the information of the Yunzhou case with number 1. I want to get it from number 1. Get the best among the disciples of Renzong's generation. But number 1 was inexplicably silent for a long time. To this day, the promise has not been kept. A few minutes later, the transmission of number 1 has come. The disciples of Renzong's generation are not strong in cultivation. The highest close minister is only a 7th grade mirror. But there's one person I don't know if it's the younger generation. Li Miaozhen asked. What characters? How to cultivate? Number 1 said, this person is a scholar. Yuan is only 27 years old. Yuan Jing suddenly resigned in the 29th year. Become a white body. He and Luo Yuhing's senior brother, Lingyun Daoist, are also teachers and friends. The Taoist master of De Lingyun taught Renzong the sword technique and the Heart Sutra. This person is extremely talented. Drama and sword cultivation. 3 years later, he stepped into the realm of sword-heart transparency. Then challenged Jin Luocheng. The opening fiasco. After that, he wandered away. He was praised by Wei Yuan as the first swordsman in the capital. He and the Lingyun Daoist do not have the name of master and apprentice. But there is the reality of master and apprentice. I don't know if it's a disciple of Renzong. Xu Qian'an was stunned. Born as a scholar. Built by deeds. The first swordsman in the capital. There is a matter of master and apprenticeship with the head of the sect of benevolence. What's going on with this strong sense of déjà vu? At this time, number 4 said, I've already returned to Beijing. Xu Qian'an sat up suddenly. Sure enough, it was him. Daoist Jin Lian is going to do something. I know that there are 2 sects of heaven and man. Fire and water are incompatible. I want to pull them together into the fragments of the book from the ground. Interesting. Number 4 and number 2 are going to come to the capital to tear up. Wait, if it's just Li Miaozhen coming to the capital, I'm confident I can handle it. After all, resurrection from the dead can be explained by rebirth pills. And Li Miaojin is the same as me. All of them have died socially. They won't get too entangled with each other. But if you come to the capital on the 4th, that's when it happened. Number 5 is also bubbling. What a coincidence. I will also leave southern Xinjiang tomorrow to travel to the capital. When I arrived in the capital, let's drink together. Xu Qian's head was full of question marks. What's going on? Why did you come to the capital on the 5th? With an IQ of 5, number 4 and number 2 are definitely not worried about him alone. When the time comes, it is inevitable to remember offline. And I'm in the capital. Li Miaozhen knows my true identity again. No, this pot must be given to Erlang to give me a back number. Asked what to do in the capital on the 5th. Lena replied with a smile. Yuli, Li Miaozhen suppressait certain émotions. Join the conversation. Number 5. You don't want to reveal your identity as an ancient clan. The Dafeng people hate the sinister rivers and lakes of the ancient people. Even if you are pitted, if the government knows the identity of your ancient people, most of them will ignore it. And in the eyes of many 9th-rate Jianghu people, any means are taken against the ancient people. It's all a matter of course. In the Battle of Shanhaiguan that year, the barbarians of southern Xinjiang and the barbarians of the north formed an alliance, opposing camp with Daebong City. In addition, in recent years, the barbarians in southern Xinjiang have tried to regain the territory, often harassing the Daebong border. The 2 sides have a long-standing grudge, and the ancient tribes of southern Xinjiang are also within the scope of the barbarians of southern Xinjiang. Lena thought for a moment. I feel that I am not afraid of drugs, and not afraid of force. Nothing to be afraid of. But since number 2 was so zealous to remind him, passing on the book and thanking for the good, I'll pay attention. Then Li Miaozhen said number 4. Although we are all members of the Heaven and Earth Society, but the grievances of the sect have to be put first. I won't show mercy when we meet. Number 4 seconds back. Life and death are at their own risk. Sue's wife said with peace of mind. It's not good. Everyone is a group friend. It doesn't have to be like this. Xu Qian'an took back the fragments of the emperor's uncle. He looked up at Zhongli with his back to him. Is it the bad luck that this woman has brought to me? I'd better return it to the supervisor. In a small courtyard somewhere. The Golden Lotus Daoist put away the fragments of the emperor's uncle. Silent with a brow. Uncle D in the chat group. Each one of them is a person with great fortune. Losing anyone is something he doesn't want to see. The dispute between heaven and man is a matter for elders. There is no need to divide life and death between the younger generations, if you don't interfere with it. With the stubbornness of Li Miaojin and the sharpness of number 4, I'm afraid there will really be one death and one injury. It is inconvenient for my younger brother to meddle in the dispute between heaven and man. Number 6 is not good at words, and the status of number 1 remains unchanged. Sure enough, it is better to push Xu Qian'an out of Hashimi. Let him intervene in the battle between heaven and man. Weaken the hostile atmosphere between Li Miaojin and number 4. In this way, there is an explanation for the sect. There is no need to distinguish between life and death. However, his cultivation is a little weak. Is not qualified to meddle in the battle between Li Miaojin and Seheo, unless it can be cultivated in a short period of time. The Golden Lotus Daoists frowned for a while. I thought about it for a long time and didn't come up with a suitable idea, until a treacherous cat meow came from the yard, and an orange cat left happily. The tail is raised high. In the house, Daoist Jean Lien lay on the bed with a peaceful face. After breakfast, Xu Qian rode a little mare. Take Zhong and leave to beat the Gingren Yamen. I'll have to go back to the Yamen now. It's bad, but it doesn't guarantee that you can enter the Yamen, especially Haoqi building. Zhongli nodded slowly. This result is acquiesced. He didn't ride a horse. Follow the little mare step by step. Walking leisurely is like a walk after dinner. Xu Qian saw it in his eyes. I was silently envious in my heart. A spell to shrink the ground into inches. Not long after, the two had just stepped into the yamen of the watchman. A silver luo hurried out, collided with Xu Qian. He asked curiously, "Is this a charlatan who has broken the law? How did you not do the bundling?" Xu Qian was stunned. "Consider why you say this." Luo explained, "You didn't take up your post yesterday. So, I don't know. Wei Gong issued a notice yesterday. Another 3 months. It's a once-in-a-lifetime battle between heaven and man. And before that, the outstanding disciples of Renzong and Tianzong will be the first to compete. For many charlatans, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Therefore, many people from the rivers and lakes come here. I want to crown Tianren." The decisive battle between the disciples of the two sects and their comrades in the yamen were at the gates of the city. Registered people who entered the city. Identify possible spies from other countries. Xu Qian nodded. At the same time as saying goodbye to Luo, I was also a little puzzled in my heart. It turns out that the status of number 4 and number 2 is so high. I didn't feel it at all. Maybe I'm the second generation of Yin. He arranged Zhongli in Li Yuchen's Chunfeng Hall. I went to the 7th floor by myself. After being passed on by the guards, Xu Qian ascended to the tea room on the 7th floor. Wei Yuan tied his hands back. Without looking back, he said that your appointment was lost at the table. I'll take it to the anthology department later. Receive the relevant waist tag and hairpin charm. Speaking of which, he looked back at Xu Qian, smiled meaningfully. From today, you are Siam. After becoming Siam, you don't have to go out and go out. Can be made into sugar. More free time. You're gifted. Time should not be spent on official business. Xu Qian was really moved. It was the first time he had seen it to an employee. You shouldn't take the time. Wasted on such a small thing as going to work. The boss. I just hate that I haven't met such a good leader in my last life. Diligently made a small 10. The social animal beating of the year is a word of the future. He promotes whomever he wants. You can belittle whoever you want. Therefore, I have no worries about my promotion to the silver gong. But when the moment comes, I still can't help but tremble with excitement. Wei Yuan continued. Soon after, the disciples of Renzong and Tianzong are about to have a decisive battle. During this time, I am afraid that the capital will not be peaceful. There are few people who make trouble and fight. Xu Qian immediately said that he understood. The lowly will maintain the law and order of the inner city. Wei Yuan nodded slowly. You had contact with Li Miaojin in Yunzhou. What is the perception of him? Li Miaojin's identity as a disciple of Tianzong, when in the White Emperor City, has confessed with Zhang Xuanfu and anxiety. After Xu Qian'an's death, Zhang Xuanfu is in the process of suppressing bandits and sent a letter back to the capital, expounded on Li Miaojin, a disciple of Tianzong, outstanding contributions made in the suppression of bandits. I implore the imperial court to confer on him an official position. The result, of course, was denied. Luo Yuheng is the national teacher of Dafeng, and Renzong and Tianzong are incompatible. Isn't that a joke? Xu Qian thought for a moment. I feel that one sentence can sum up my battle robes with the general. The hibiscus tent warms up the spring night. Come to think of it, Xu Qian said that it was just 2 disciples. Wei Gong doesn't have to care so much. Wei Yuan said in a serious tone, attitudes among disciples determines the attitude of the elders of the division. The head of the heavenly sect is a product. For this answer, Xu Qian was both shocked and not shocked. In the 3 sects of the Daomen, Tianzong is the strongest. The Taoists of Renzong and Dizong are second class. If the heavenly sect does not have a product, how to be strong? But that's it. Isn't Renzong's Lu Yuheng bound to lose? If this contest between disciples can't be handled well, when the time comes, the Taoist hand between the 2 sects of Tianren, I'm afraid I'm going to die. The 1st and 2nd grades are the pinnacle combat power in the world. Even if Wei Yuan, who is as wise as a demon, I don't dare to be negligent and generous. The bottom of the pressure box in the capital. Politics is just a product. Xu Qian plans to report the inside story of the Heaven and Earth Society. There is something that Duke Wei has not told you yet. Wei Yuan sighed, motioned for Xu Qian to sit down and speak. Xu Qian immediately put Uncle D in the chat group. Last night's chat. Paraphrase. That Li Miaojin is really a member of the Heaven and Earth Society. He's in charge of Fragment 2, and the disciple sent by the Heavenly Sect. It should be the #1 swordsman in the capital that you have evaluated. Wei Yuan nodded appreciatively. Your message is timely. He pampered this gong. The ingredients are complex. There are many factors. The first is the stars. That is character, trustworthy and guaranteed. The second is talent. Xu Qian's talent. It is worth cultivating vigorously. And then there's the character. This one is not the same as the stars. Xu Qian's personality is very good at being playful, smart and slippery, and know how to flatter, to suck up, but it has its own principles. One last point. He can always surprise Wei Yuan, whether it's solving a case or the intelligence at hand. He has been showing Wei Yuan his role. Let Wei Yuan be pleased. It's not a strain, nothing to do. A sapling that needs to be supported and cared for all the time. It's the same as those who are so talented, but the ability to do things and deal with things. An incomparably sparse family genius. There is a significant difference. At this time, Wei Yuan said thoughtlessly, try to cooperate with the Golden Lotus Daoist. Xu Qian was puzzled. Wei Yuan patiently explained that Jin Lian established the Heaven and Earth Society. Search all over Kyushu for the holder of the handing out shard. The original intention was to clean up the portal, exterminate the Taoist who has fallen into demons. So, he certainly wouldn't look at the bearer of the handing fragment. Losses will try to find a way to grip the twist. But he is a man of the earthly sect. The Earth sect has always been neutral. It is not convenient to intervene directly. So most of them will ask you for help. Xu Qian laughed twice. How can I help? And yet at this moment, suddenly there was a call from downstairs. The sound of gongs and drums and faint shouts. Walk the water, go out of the water. Xu Qian frowned. Caught fire. He joined the migrant workers for half a year. It's the first time I've encountered something like this. Instead of rushing out of the Haoqi building in a hurry, look around for a moment. It was found that the chestnut orchard and the watchmen were carrying buckets to extinguish the fire. A bad premonition suddenly rose in his heart, because the outside of the Spring Breeze Hall has been burned black. A quarter of an hour later, the fire was extinguished by the yamen as a golden gong. Chunfeng Hall copied a sentence as a scorched earth ruin. Fortunately, there were no casualties. One of the golden gongs was angry, ordered the watchman to find out the cause of the water. Xu Qian'an rushed directly inside, searching around for something, in a secluded yard somewhere. Finally, it was Zhongli who discovered the hair film. He said with a sigh of relief, "I had a good time in the house. Somehow it caught fire. You take a moment at night. I may be redeemed." Xu Qian'an was boldly surprised. "You're a 5-rank warlock. Any fire can hurt you." Zhongli said, "I just went wrong while meditating." Xu Qian'an couldn't bear it. "I'll take you to a shower first. Change your clothes." At dusk, Xu Qian'an, who finished the first exam, left the park. With the students pouring out of the gate, came to the street. But he turned his head and looked around for a moment, found that his father's big brother and sister didn't pick him up. Su Erlang gritted his teeth and comforted himself. "Dad and big brother shouldn't have dispersed yet. It is inconvenient for my mother and sister to travel alone. It must be like this." He was holding the bookcase. "I'm going to walk back home, but I didn't forget to show myself." Gently pat your thigh. Recite until the body is as light as a swallow. An invisible force enveloped him. Between walks, it was as if the wind was blowing, walking no slower than a horse-drawn carriage. Suddenly, someone in front of him laughed and said, "It's as light as a swallow." Xu Qian'an stopped. Look for the sound. On the side of the street stood a lowly aoyama sword. The guest didn't wait for Xu Qian'an to speak. The Qingshan swordsman smiled and said with a smile, "The first one is over. As I used to do back then, the next 3 days, I had to go to the workshop with my classmates to drink and celebrate. That was 9 years ago. Come to think of it, the Oran of the year is already old. Or find a lover. Heard, the Beijing church has torn out an Oran who is both worldly and emotional. Fame spread throughout the states. I want to see it. Brother Tai, we might as well live together." Xu Qian'an listened quietly. There was only one thought in my head. This man can't be a fool. Do I know you so well? Xu Qian'an ignored him. Ran away quickly. What's going on today? Before entering, I met an inexplicable monk. After the appearance, he ran into a foolish swordsman. Hurry up, boys, and protect yourself outside. In the afterglow of the setting sun, the red sunset hangs in the sky. Xu Qian'an took Zhongli to the teaching division. I don't know if Fuka's illness has healed. The women of this age were weak-boned, contracted wind chill at every turn. This time, bring Zhongli to diagnose her. At this time, Zhongli asked Fuxiang, "Are you in the township of the Jiaofeng division?" Xu Qian'an was stunned and said, "How do you know?" Zhongli said unhurriedly, "If not for the great relationship, why would you have asked me to see a doctor? And you are a person with great luck. Not like those men. Be an Oiran servant." Xu Qian'an took a breath of cold air in the west. The heart said that the 5th senior sister, "You still have the potential to be a detective." He snorted this Fuxiang. "It's my confidant. I was brilliant when I was younger. And unforgettable. It is a natural seed of reading. But the second uncle planned my life early. So much so that Dafeng missed a giant in the poetry world. I was 14 years old. With a cousin, participated in the literary meeting organized by the Guozi supervisor. It was sleet in the sky that day. I made a splash at the conference. Everyone praised me for my good poetry. Fuxiang also had a deep affection for me at that meeting. From then on, we often exchanged letters. A platonic love affair unfolded. Plato is spiritual love. There is absolutely no vulgar carnal relationship. Zhongli interrupted you and told me what to do. Xu Qian'an prayed and promised me. Don't tell Kai Wei. Zhongli turned his head to look at him for a moment. Retract your gaze and move on, until it was close to Brother Shadow Plum. He said I'd forget about it. Xu Qian'an suddenly wanted to die. The two of them haven't arrived at Brother Mei yet. I could already hear the sound of wind music everywhere. Xu Qian'an was a little curious. Today, Brother Mei has broken so early. He walked with Zhongli to the gate of the courtyard. I saw 2 black lacquered courtyard doors closed. So he banged on the courtyard door. The voice of the little four in Tsing, he came from inside the door. Brother Mei has chartered the venue. Su Weifan shouted that it was me. The courtyard door opened. Tsing Yi Xiaoxi's face was happy. Said Su Gongzi in a loud voice. You're here. Tonight the workshop division has a great guest. It's right in the house. Su Weifan frowned. Amazing guests. Tsing, he explained yes. As soon as he came to the teaching workshop, he went straight to Yin Mei Xiaoga. Said to see the affection of Our Lady. Our Lady wasn't going to accompany the drink. He politely declined. But guess what? Mom came in personally, behind closed doors with Fuka. I don't know what I said after talking for a long time. Made the lady reluctant to accept it. Reluctantly appeared to present a song. The most incredible thing is, there were 12 of them at once. It's all uninvited. Xu Qian'an was taken aback. I heard that even the bad old man in Wang Shofu. I don't have this treatment. I didn't expect there to be such a character in the capital. No way. Jiaofeng Temple has to be a place where I stand out. I've got to meet this guy. Come to think of it, Sue's wife's sweaty hand that did not change her face took me to meet her. At this time, guests are entertained in the hall where they drink. Floating incense sat in the middle of the field. Bow your head and stroke the piano. Gentle and glamorous, the color is alive. A song is over. Fu Xiang faintly got up. The waiter smiled. A man in civilian clothes laughed. Fu Xiang lady is too modest. This is the teaching department of the capital. There are very few who can compete with you in terms of affection. Another pot-bellied man reunites. Take a seat. Let's wait for it. Some people even said it to death. Joke since that Yongmei quatrain. The Fu Xiang lady no longer accompanies the wine. But since it was Brother Chu back, this is estimated to be 2 more words. Fuka lady, don't make Brother Chu wait for a long time. Fu Xiang's eyes are shining. Sweep past the long-time customers. The identities of these people are not simple. It is not an official in charge of the 6 ministries. It is the gathering room of the Hanlin Temple and the imperial room of the inspectorate and other pro-cabinets, and the man with the green camel. The identity is even more unusual. It's only been 27 years. Today's first swordsman in the capital. He both satisfied the faculty lady, the enthusiasm of talented and beautiful people. It also satisfies their fantasy of being a chivalrous man. Double aura. Therefore, as soon as the news of his coming to the Jiaofeng Temple came, there were 12 Oirans who came uninvited. Take the initiative to accompany the wine. Fu Xiang smiled reservedly. Forgive me. The little woman was unwell. It is not advisable to drink alcohol today. Several officials frowned. I don't like it. This Fu Xiang is inevitably too self-conscious. It's just for him to accompany the wine. It's not about doing anything to him. On the contrary, it was okay for the Qingshan swordsman to smile freely. Today I am talking to you about wine. At this time, Mingyan raised a bright smile. Warm up and say, let's help the fragrant lady. Since the fight and Lord Su got along, and he no longer accompanied the wine. He is still waiting for Lord Su to redeem himself. Don't embarrass him, gentlemen. The voice fell. The drinkers relented. The color of displeasure. Although they're all officials with real power. But in front of the watchman, it's all younger brothers. In front of Xu Qian'an, a newly knighted watchman. It's the younger brother of the younger brothers. Chu Zhuangyuan's eyebrows are one and greater. Which Lord Su? He remembered his uncle's chat group. When number 2 asked number 1 about a Tongluo surnamed Su, what number 1 said, this person's biggest weakness is lust. and the teaching division is mostly in Oiran. Oil-dyed Yin said with a smile. Speaking of that Lord Su, it's really an incredible character. He started with the tax and silver case in October last year. Balabalas. He put Xu Qian's deeds. I said it again. Fuxiang was a little proud. The soft voice said that the snow wolf was on the occasion of the catastrophe. 8,000 enemy troops have been killed. Another Oran Xiaya saw this. Hurriedly grabbed the topic. Cui Shengxing said that the young man was chivalrous. Wudu Xiong's liver and gallbladder cave. Hair stands in the pool. Death and life are the same. The champion of the 1,000 pounds praised the good words loudly. At the same time, a doubt flashed in my heart. Number 2. Not that there were more than 400 rebels besieging the legation. Xu Qian killed the enemy in 200 catastrophes. How did it become 8,000 people? One official said it was a good thing. It's so big that you don't study. It's a pity that Su Pingji is not a benevolent son. The remaining 9 guests are guarded. Agree. He also said that it was a pity that Xu Qian did not come to the sect today. Otherwise, he will know the talent of our champion. Hear this. A series of question marks appeared in Chu Zhuangyuan's mind. What are they talking about? Didn't Xu Qian die in Yunzhou? It's been more than a month. It's impossible that the capital didn't get the news. Right now. Fu Xiang cheered in surprise. Chu Zhuan turned his head sharply to look. A strange face was spotted in front of me. Xian said that he was Xu Qian. Xu Qian strode in. I'm bothering you with a smile. The officials present smiled one after another. Mouth shouting. Lord Zhu warmly beckoned him to take a seat. Seems to be very familiar with Xu Qian. Chu Zhuangyuan was already stunned at the moment. The speculation in the mind combined with the reaction of everyone present. He was incomparably sure. The person in front of him is Xu Qian. But didn't he die in Yunzhou? How did it come back to life? It can't be pardoned. Xu Qian had already sat down beside Fuxiang at this time. Glance back. It is discovered that Zhongli is missing. I guess that he should be hiding somewhere. Don't be too far away from me. Otherwise, the workshop division may be burned down by a fire tonight. I thought to myself. Suddenly, I noticed a gaze. Look straight at yourself. At this time, an official inquired about Qian, introducing Viscount Michi. This is the champion of the 27th year of Yuanjing. He was praised by Wei Gong as the first swordsman in the capital. Su Qi groaned in his heart. The heart says he's number 4. But how could number 4 be here? Chu Zhuangyuan Khan raised his glass. Smiled at Su Qian. Chu Yuanji Zijin. Su Qian also raised his glass in response. Su Qian's words are rather recited. Su Qian has the heart to die at this moment. It turns out that the so-called big guy is number 4. Number 4 knows that I am my old cousin. Know that I have died in the clouds. Turning around and talking in the book delivery chat group. Li Miaojin will think about it again. I was induced by number 3 to die socially. But with number 4 and number 2 now in a tense situation, I don't think I'll be able to take the initiative to chat. Kiss a hand first. However, this number 4 looks thin and tender. He's a standard handsome guy. A strand of white hair on the forehead. It adds a lot of charm to him. The whole body is free and easy. No edge. He's a master, no doubt. Chu Yuanjin was also secretly looking at him. This Xu Qian is really handsome. Both brothers are talented. Have a dignified appearance. It's a fierce rival. Next they played with a sobering order. Wen Qinghua Kue Xiaoya is responsible for acting as a commander. Paired to poetry solitaire. It's a lot of fun. The only regret is that Xu Qian did not participate. Instead, let the Fuxiang around him take it with him. All he had to do was drink wine and eat meat. Xu Qian came to visit Fuxiang this time. At this time, I saw that he was in good spirits. Ruddy complexion. I believe that it is really just a small cold. It's my own blind worry. There is also a task given to him by Wei Yuan today. That is to mediate. Stop number 4 and number 2 from crashing. Let them fight to the point. So, he had to raise his opinion here on the 4th first. Xu Qian'an tested Brother Chu. Yesterday, I heard from a colleague in the Yamen. Because the dispute between heaven and man is imminent. Li Miaozhen, the disciple of the Inner Heaven sect, is about to go to Beijing. And you are the sword cultivator of Renzong. Chu Yuanji smiled and said, I will come forward on behalf of Renzong. Fight with the disciples of Tianzong. Xu Qian took advantage of the situation to look at the long sword leaning on the shore of the 9 banks. I wondered if I could let my little brother see the edge of this sword. Chu Yuanji shook his head, since he lost to Mrs. Zhang back then. The sword was never unsheathed again. There is another reason for colleagues. I'm looking up. Su's wife nodded slowly. He frowned and pretended to be pensive. Chu Yuanji asked what was wrong. Su's wife said leisurely, and her thoughts were exhausted before. You can't do good. But listen to Brother Chu's words. Suddenly, thoughts flowed. I can't help but want to write a poem. The eyes of the drinkers and the oiran lit up. Scorchingly, it seems that Fuxiang's pretty face is also dyed with a layer of red. There was endless love in his eyes when he looked at Xu Qian. But it's more about swearing to the sisters. That's my man. Chu Yuanji was a little surprised. There were some surprises. Straighten your posture. Be all ears. Xu Qian copied more and more poems. Gradually, I found the trick of reading people to win narrowly in front of people. He was not in a hurry to speak. Instead, he pretended to walk 7 steps in the living room. This is only 10 years of grinding a sword. Chu Yuanji is just right. I just said that I am looking up to see Su. Qian immediately made this sentence. I didn't run. This poem was made for me. He was suddenly moved. I have never met this Xu Qian. After a few words of wine, he is willing to compose poems for himself. Treat people so kindly and warmly. It's a shame. Number 3 is a chivalrous reader. Although there are some small problems with profit-seeking. But overall, it's a good person to make friends with. His cousin was more old-fashioned than he was. It deserves to be a brother. Su wife and looked around at everyone. Faintly pronounced the 2nd sentence. The double blade has not been tried. The officials present chewed on the poem. The eyes are slightly shining. 10 years of sharpening a sword. The double edge has not been tried. This is a short sentence. Ambition and pride are on paper. Chu Yuanji's eyes were bright. Unconsciously straightened his waist. This pretentiousness is the only young man like himself. To be able to write it, it's so apt. It's so apt. I've traveled all these years. Open your eyes and cultivate sword energy. This is the best magic weapon of Renzong. Always hidden in the scabbard. Not shown. The day will come when he will be unsheathed. Merely. I also didn't think about what the future would be. That's why I'm going to pull out the sword. Until recently, the Taoist hand flying sword passed on the book, summoning me back to face Tianzong's disciple Li Miaozhen. It dawned on me. It turned out to be a weight. At this time, I just felt a little regretful in my heart. The sword was unsheathed. It's going to be earth-shattering. It can be used to cut urine needles. That's not what I want. Chu Yuanji is full of cowardice in this regard. He asked, what is the next association? 10 years of sharpening a sword. What kind of situation will it be unsheathed? Su wife and shook her head and sighed. The next link has not been thought of yet. Chu Yuanjin was stunned. The smile on his face stiffened. The officials present quit one after another. How did this go away? I can't do without. How can a poem have only uplink? Lord Su should not be willful. We're waiting. So, Su wife and said helplessly, I really didn't think about it. Well, I'll do half of it first. The other half will be made up for Brother Chu later. How Chu Yuanji was so disappointed that he could only do this. The investigation was not completed until the beginning of the day. The Orin yawned. Get up and take your leave. Despite some sleepiness, but the beauties are still unsatisfied. I feel that there is a banquet for Xu Qian and the first guest in the capital. It's so interesting. It's a pity that such high-quality guests can't be met every day. Xu Yuanji also said goodbye and left at this time. Xu Qian originally had the intention to stay, but he gave in. Number 4 did not have an overnight stay in the workshop. It's a bit of a pity. So indifferent and free. Myself, I can't find a chance to let him die socially. But the reader has the weakness of the reader. For example, poetry. I'll hide it first, wait until the right time to take it out. At this time, Fu Xiang took Xu Qian's arm and entered the bedroom. Su Lang was late at night. Let's get some rest, Xu Qian said suddenly. I will redeem you in a few days. Fu Xiang was stunned for a moment. Ling Xiu's eyes flashed with complexity, but it quickly settled down again. Sighed lightly, Su Lang had just become a son. Concubines now are not good for your reputation. Xu Qian hugged his gorgeous little waist. Hooking his jaw, he smiled slowly. There is no urgency in this matter. As he spoke, he and Fu Xiang rolled on the bed. The bed slats were shaken and creaked. When the two of them are ready to go further. Suddenly, there was a click. Then came the feeling of weightlessness. The bed collapsed, Fu Xiang exclaimed, and pestered Xu Qian. You can see Xu Qian's big bald head. For some reason, I couldn't help but want to laugh. Xu Qian covered the mark of being a strong man. A nameless anger burned in his chest. Zhongli Lao Tzu wants to find Jianjing and kneeling. Photography is no little brother. Chu Yuan's diagnosis was indicated. A swing of the long sword on his back. It's like coming to life. Because of the general detachment from bondage. Stopped at his feet. Chu Yuanjin stepped on the scabbard. Whispered to go. The long sword comfortably pierced the night sky. Sword. The moment you take to the night sky. Chu Yuanjin felt. There are countless eyes in the capital that lock onto themselves. Then move away. One of the stares that sent chills down his spine the most. From that towering stargazing tower. He soon left the inner city. Fly towards the south side of the outer city. If memory serves, number 6 in Yuan is in the health hall. He lowered his altitude for a long time. Finally found the health hall in the south city. Wait for him to get his sword under the scabbard at the same time. Then I heard the sound of chanting the Buddha's name from under the eaves. Amipa. Chu Yuanji greeted with a smile. Master Heng Yuan. Heng Yuan looked at him quietly. It was the poor monk. The donor is number 4. Heng Yuan led Chu Yuanji into the house. The two who met for the first time behaved calmly. Neither close nor unfamiliar. Light an oil lamp. And he took out a jar of wine from under the bed. Pull out 2 porcelain bowls. Chu Yuanji was a little curious, and the disciples of the Tao Buddhism sect could drink alcohol. Heng Yuan calmly replied that the warrior monk was not good at meat. The subtext is that warrior monks don't need to be cheap. Chu Yuanji looked at the wine in his hand. Some regret not bringing peanuts. There is wine, but no food. I always felt like something was missing. But he smiled anyway. Said I saw number 3 today. And number 3 pretended not to know me. But with his ingenuity, I believe they recognized me at the time. I just pretended not to know for some reason. Speaking of which, he shook his head helplessly. The cultivation of the 8th grade slim mirror is shallower. But he knows the secrets of number 3. Number 3 is associated with the subtemple hydrogen rush into the sky. You can't simply look at the surface when treating number 3. Master Heng Yuan took a sip of wine, murmuring compared to number 3. The poor monk and Lord Su are even more in love. You may not know it yet. He did not die in the clouds. He was about to Xu Qian's resurrection. Said to the 4th, Chu Yuan's stubborn defense of the reincarnation pill is good. But the restrictions are too great. He survived by his own luck. I just met Xu Qian at the workshop division. I'm on him. It looks good. What? I've heard you discuss it too many times in the fragments of the handing book. There is no sense of alienation from him. Heng Yuan smiled and said, number 3, I haven't gotten along. But Xu Qian did have an appetite for me. After 3 rounds of drinking, Xu Yuanjin offered to see the child. Heng Yuan immediately took him to the wing. In the past, it was still a firewood house. After the two of them went in, Xu Yuanjin watched it for the first time. I saw the black child, covered in dog fur. He was lying on the ground dying. Xu Yuanjin said with emotion, although I don't like Buddhism. But they are right. The world has become like a sea of suffering. Sentient beings struggle in the sea of suffering. Heng Yuan glanced at him. Xu Yuanjin hurriedly said, I don't mean to offend. Talking about the style of painting, the style changed. 3 days later, there will be the second session. Let's go and see number 3 together. Heng Yuan said. Number 3 is reluctant to reveal his identity to us. He said if we met, just meet and smile. Xu Yuanjin suddenly realized, understood why number 3 pretended not to know himself. 3 days passed in a flash. Su Erlang arrived at the Gongyuan accompanied by his family. Xu Qian'an patted him on the shoulder and encouraged him to drink Confucian wine. Have the ability to remember. This one is lean. Jiro must be stress-free. Su Qian'an said that the first day's quiz played very well. I'm good at cross-questioning. The second session of lean was also not a big problem. He raised his chin slightly as he spoke. Arrogantly said, although there are many talented students in the world, don't be negligent. But there may not be anyone stronger than me. Su's wife said with peace of mind that she was pretending to be forced. Or are you more powerful? Say goodbye to the beauty. Su Qian'an walked to the gate of the tribute courtyard. I'm going to line up to get in. That's when it happened. A loud voice rang out in his ears, Amitabha. A monk and swordsman faced him. A dark smile was revealed. Su Qian'an looked sideways. His face froze suddenly. He hurried back to his father and eldest brother. Dad, big brother me. I suspect that someone is plotting against me. After Su Pingji heard this, eyebrows immediately raised. Eyes like electricity. Su New Year pointed to the rear somewhere. Is a monk and a swordsman. Su Qian looked at it for a moment. Speechless, there is no one. Su Qian'an showed a look of horror. It was there just now. Su Qian patted the little brother's shoulder and said, okay. Also said, you don't have pressure. I see you're hallucinating. Jiro, those people who don't know and behave strangely. You don't have to bother. Said that he dragged his hand behind Su Qian'an's back. Su Erlang looked at the eldest brother behind him. I don't understand the big brother. What does that mean? Su Qian smiled awkwardly. It's okay. Help you carry the pot well. The season of early spring. It was windy and rainy. A 3-way sailboat rides the wind and waves. The wind held the canvas to the bone. Nicholas Song looked at the north. Said that he would arrive in the capital in 10 years. Zhu Guanxiao sighed. He remained silent. In addition to the temperament has become more stable and dignified. Not much has changed. On the contrary, it is the oily and smooth Song Tingfeng. It's like a rebirth. With my military exploits in Yunzhou, enough to exchange for a visualization map of the alchemy mirror. I'm going to be promoted to the divine refining mirror. If you change to before, Zhu Guanxiao heard him say this. It may be a surprise, because of colleagues for many years. He knew that Nicholas Song lacked self-motivation. Mix to the gong is already satisfied. Patrol the streets during the day. In the evening, visit the workshop division. The little days were very comfortable. Not to mention this military exploit in Yunzhou. If you change it to a name, it's enough for him to live privately in the workshop for 1 year. But now, especially after that incident, he was no longer surprised that Nicholas Song did anything. Zhu Guanxiao nodded. He snorted again. Nicholas Song didn't seem to hear it. Half continued to look north, until a long time later, Nicholas Song exhaled a breath of turbidity. Said that I am not badly aptitude. Stuck at the peak of Qi training for so many years. The foundation is solid enough. At the end of the year, it is not difficult to be promoted to practice God. I've been thinking about it all this time. If I weren't that lazy, if I'm not so useless, If I came to Yinzhou, I was already refining the divine sword. Nicholas Song lowered his head. His voice trembled a little. Don't call fonts anymore. Never to go again. Zhu Guangxiao patted him on the shoulder in silence. The law and order here in the capital has been chaotic in recent days. Let Su Pingji, who was the protection of the sword guard, and Xu Qian'an, who beat the guard, was very busy. Jianghu people like to be brave and ruthless. There are indeed heroes who act chivalrous and righteous. But it's more of a low-end goods. It's amazing who's messing around. In just 4 or 5 days, Shan Su Qian himself arrested several drunken and brawling outsiders. According to the second uncle, the outer city can catch the gentleman on the beam every night. The inner city is peaceful, because there is a ban in the inner city. The 5 flavors of the capital of the Night Watch encountered an incident of migrant workers traveling at night. If you choose to flee at this time, will be shot on the spot. And if it's a suspicious figure walking on a roof, it is not necessary for migrant workers to have the right to cut first and then play, picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Usually he is pressed into prison and waits for his companion's bail. These little things that do not lead to death are the most troublesome. On this day, Xu Qian patrolled with 2 gongs. He cursed and commanded the gong beside him. Anyone who doesn't look like a native of the capital, pay attention to me. It must be taken before they make trouble. But his voice fell. A servant immediately ran forward. Hurriedly roared Su Ingong. There was a fight in front. There were bursts of shouting from the streets. They were all onlookers. Xu Qian saw this. A wave of annoyance. What the hell is this bunch of dogs? The blades were collected. It's still so tossed. Get it down for Lao Tzu. All of them were brought back to the yamen. A gong leaps forward. It is forbidden to cause disturbances and fights in the inner city. Go with the official to the yamen, who knows 2 rivers and lakes. The guest hit a real fire. Takeo's head is hot. It doesn't matter who you are. The people of the government fight the same. The gong narrowly avoided a sinister boxing move. Then he was furious. The gun was drawn with a bang, and the saber slashed down. But right now, an opportunity popped up from below. The blade that hits the gong. Let the blade slash off. Xu Qian's face suddenly darkened. Annoyed in the first place. Now there is a spoiler. He pressed his thumb against the black gold knife. The gun popped out half an inch. Someone seemed to sense his murderous aura. Immediately shouted to stop. It was 2 groups of brightly dressed outsiders. There is a young boy. There are also beautiful women with convex figures. I heard my masters shouting to stop. The 2 Jianghu guests just stopped. A handsome man. The young man in a white costume bowed his hand to the adult. Lu Chun in the Lu family in Xiaojingzhou. Xu Qian nodded. Look at the other group. I asked you guys. The leader over there is a feminine son. Snorted. The old man beside him hurriedly said back to the adult. Jingzhou Zhao family. The Lu family and the Zhao family are famous clans in Jingzhou. There are pillars of the family who have taken the career path. There are also masters of mixed rivers and lakes. Black and white are all you can eat. In layman's terms, it is the local squire. These 2 are like fire and water in Jingzhou. Officials stab each other in the face. Swords fight in the rivers and lakes. The grudge has been around for a long time. This time I came to the capital to watch the battle. I happened to meet by chance on the street. Xu Qian swept through everyone. Lung Lung said who was the opportunity to play just now. The gentle boy raised his chin, and it was me. Xu Qian nodded slowly. All of you will go with your official to the yamen of the watchman. The Lu family. The handsome and extraordinary boy frowned slightly. Brother Gongzi, who has a feminine temperament, sneered. We didn't do it in the streets. You can take the 2 of them back to the yamen. Su Weifan disdainfully said let you go. Cheyenne Rory. Believe it or not, Lao Tzu beheaded you. The feminine boy brother did not touch it at all. Why should the Son of Heaven have to abide by the law even if he fights at his feet? Suddenly, a gun rang out. The black and gold long knife was unsheathed in an instant. The dull golden thread flickered away. The feminine boy hasn't reacted yet. Seeing that he was going to die in Huangquan, there was a man beside him with a beautiful face. The woman with a gentle temperament was the first to react. Take off the silver hairpin from your head. Point at the sword chi. Then there was a bang. The silver hairpin exploded. The sword chi cut the slender jade hand. Xu Qian'an stood up, a kick to fly the woman, smashed like a meat shield at the feminine sun. Xu Qian'an used dark strength with this kick. The bones are not broken, but the kick hurt the other party's internal organs. Xu Qian'an didn't go to see the feminine sun. The long knife stepped forward, sneered, "You dare to make a move, even if you're copper-skinned. Lao Tzu wants to be unwilling. You can't get out of this capital." The old man's face turned pale. Look down at your chest. There was already a faint reddish glow. The people of the Liu family re-examined Xu Qian'an. Even the copper skin and iron bones were broken by him. Not to mention the casual sword just now. One kick directly defeated the eldest lady of the Zhao family in the god-refining realm. This was followed by an understatement. Broke the copper skin, iron bones, and flesh defense. This Yin Luo. At a young age, he can become a silver Luo. It is worthy of being a random Yin Luo in the capital. Cut to the outside, it is the level of a genius in the sky. This cultivation is simply terrifying, and the talent is even more staggering. Xu Qian'an looked back at the people of the Liu family. "Can you leave?" The handsome son-in-law didn't dare to die. Terasama calls the shots. Xu Qian'an escorted 2 groups of people back to the yamen. "And bring in the clerks who are in charge," said these 2 groups of people, "and thou shalt make them pay 100 taels of silver each." Not even 1 point is allowed to be released. Of these, 300 taels were credited to the account. 50 taels, one between thou and thy colleagues. The 2 gongs that patrolled the street with me were 50 taels each. The rest, send me to Chunfeng Hall tomorrow, Kurihara said busily. Rest assured, the humble duty will be done. Xu Qian'an nodded with satisfaction. Instead, went to the stable. Ride your beloved little mare in the direction of the imperial city. The sun is high. He planned to go to Lingbao Pass for lunch. By the way, I asked Luo Yuheng for advice on the Star Sword spectrum. The Star Sword spectrum has been introduced. In Xu Qian's opinion, it is not difficult. To cast it, you only need to attach mental power to the blade. Just like an opportunity. The difficulty is how to mellow with the opportunity. It's like drawing a circle with one hand. Drawing with 2 hands together is not a good idea of how much your brain can distribute. Often stuck. When you first see it, you either forget to send the opportunity, or forget to attach spiritual power. Now he's Ayara. Free access to the imperial city. The waste card is bright. The guards defending the city were immediately released. Come to Lingbao Pass. The Taoist boy guarding the gate went to report. Su Weifan entered the museum with Daodong. But then he was stunned, because except for Luo Yuheng, next to him stood a Aoyama swordsman. This was Xu Qian's first thought. The groove. Luo Yuheng knew that I was the one in charge of handing over the fragments of the book. He's not going to sell me. Xu Qian's face did not change. I have seen the national teacher in the salute. Champion Lang Chu Yuanji was also a little surprised. He asked with a curiosity, "How did Lord Su get acquainted with the national teacher?" Luo Yuheng nodded. Just as I was about to answer, Xu Qian hurriedly coughed vigorously. The weakness of the heart is almost written on the face. He hurriedly transmitted the message to the national teacher. But it was bounced back. The sound was bounced back again. Xu Qian was a little depressed. The sister-in-law's attitude is obvious. Let's not say that. Don't chat privately. Xu Qian is a little anxious. But he also knows Transhan's more intimate demeanor. It's really reluctant to use it on the national teacher. Chu Yuanji looked at Xu Qian. I looked at the national teacher again. Laugh and say you need me to back off. Luo Yuheng's beautiful eyes looked at Xu Qian. Say what's the matter? Xu Qian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Gong said that I had encountered some problems in my heart and my cultivation. Please ask the national teacher to solve your doubts. Luo Yuheng nodded, and it is indeed difficult to get started. Yuanjin, you help me guide. Lord Su is going to see His Majesty. After speaking, Luo Yuheng's figure disappeared. This woman just disappeared into the mirror room. Xu Qian was a little envious. What kind of magic power was this? Chu Yuanjin shook his head, explained that the Tao is not supernatural. It was a thought that came to hand. It was just taken back. Su and Daoshi took a breath of cold air. The methods of high-grade and strong people are like gods. But then he was upset. Today, I finally waited for Zhongli to return to the fourth heavenly sword. That's why I'm going to come to Lingbao Pass. It's a pity that I still couldn't eat with the national teacher. The two of them went out of the Lingbao Pass one after the other. Xu Qian chased after him and asked about the mystery of the Star Sword. Chu Yuanjin said that it was indeed difficult to get started with the Star Sword. After all, Takeo is not good at the Genshin realm. Suddenly, Xu Qian interrupted him. Reserved Dao Chu brother. Sorry for misunderstanding you. Actually, I've already started with a new sword. Chu Yuanji nodded. Didn't care. Asked how long he had been practicing the new sword. Xu Qian looked back for about 10 days. Chu Yuanji was stunned. Gaze at Xu Qian's 10-day new sword entry. What kind of grievance does this have to be? Even for disciples who practice the Dao sect Dharma. I don't dare to say that I can get started in 10 days. Qian smiled and said that Xu never lies. Chu Yuanji was surprised by Brother Su's talent. I was blown away. The law of Rinzong. It's a pity that Xu Qian scratched his head in embarrassment. Don't think so. Otherwise, Rinzong also had to scold Su Pingji for not being a benevolent son. How innocent my second uncle was. Xu Qian secretly said that Chu Yuanji was an arrogant and introverted person. He has the backbone of a scholar and the unruliness of a swordsman. But these are never expressed between words. Compared to the Tsundere Jiro, number 4 is more like a social person with a wealth of experience. Xu Qian asked suddenly. Brother Chu felt that there was no difference between the private sects and Dafeng. It's obviously a very serious sermon. Chu Yuanji was a little confused. Still answered truthfully after abandoning the text and monasticism. I never stayed overnight in the workshop. The line in front of the division is that Lao Tzu is abstinent. Xu Qian asked again, and the wife of the Tao was about to die. What does Brother Chu think of Li Miaojin of the Inner Heaven sect? Chu Yuanji, Chen-yin Dao chivalrous liver and gall. Chu was very admired. Xu Qian has no flaws in the middle of the abdomen. He smiled and said, Brother Chu. He was tormented by night fires. Do you have similar torture? Chu Yuanji was stunned and said, You know. The quick-witted Xu Qian hurriedly patched. Wei Gong talked to me about it. Chu Yuanji suddenly accepted this explanation and think it's reasonable because Wei Yuan really cultivated him carefully. Regarded as a confidant, Chu Yuanji thought about it, said that I was just cultivating the swordsmanship of the Rinzong, but he doesn't cultivate the mind. Xu Qian didn't understand. What does that mean? Chu Yuanji said, if judged by the system of martial artists, I am refining the divine sword, but I'm majoring in Renzong's new swordsmanship, and swordsmanship. Xu Qian asked, then how do you get promoted? What's next? The 3 swordsmanship is a means of defeating the enemy, rather than the foundation of the system. Other words, Chu Yuanjin is actually not following the Daomen system. It is based on the dancer system, majored in Runzong swordsmanship. Chu Yuanji replied freely, I don't know. The road ahead. Let's walk. Xu Qian smiled. Let's move on to the actual combat skills of the new sword. Gradually, Chu Yuanji found that Xu Qian's cultivation knowledge was very shallow. It's not at all like what a god refining mirror should look like. That's right. He joined the company after the tax and silver case in October last year. He would have been an alchemy mirror. In just half a year, it has grown by leaps and bounds. Become a 7-rank dancer. The talent is terrifying. Come to think of it, his heart was on fire. Paper. It's boring. Brother Sue, why don't we have a discussion? Xu Qian'an thought for a moment. I think this is an opportunity to find out the number 4. He nodded immediately. On the other side, Emperor Yuanjing and Luo Yuheng sat opposite each other. Emperor Yuanjing said angrily, "The little guy of Tianzong is coming to the capital. Is Chu Yuanji sure to defeat him?" Luo Yuheng's expression was clear, and it was difficult to say. Although Li Miaojin is a 5-grade product, but it is highly likely that this opportunity will be taken. Step into the Yin well of the 4 pins. Chu Yuanji didn't draw his sword. Victory or defeat is unpredictable. Emperor Yuanjing sighed with emotion. No matter what. They're all outstanding juniors. I am Dafeng. It's been a long time since there have been young people worth my attention. The female national teacher chuckled. What did your majesty mean by this? Chu Yuanji is the champion of Yuanjing in 27 years. Emperor Yuanjing shook his head. Chu Yuanji abandoned his official body. Become a white coat. It has long been dismissed from the imperial court. It's strange to say. For more than 10 years. Daebong's national strength is declining day by day. Even the talent is getting scarcer, especially in recent years. It's been a long time since I've met a junior who satisfies me. Emperor Yuanjing asked instead, how does the national teacher plan to deal with that heavenly sect Daoist? The last battle between heaven and man. The heavenly sect Daoist has not yet stepped into the realm of a product. Your father fought with him inextricably. No winner or loser. The implication of Emperor Yuanjing's words was very obvious. Double cultivation is a good thing for mutual benefit. It is by no means a remedial sorcery that only one party benefits. Luo Yuheng wants to make rapid progress in the short term. In addition to having a double break with him. There is no other way. That's when it happened. Suddenly, there was a strong fluctuation of qi. Disturbed Emperor Yuanjing and Luo Yuheng. Emperor Yuanjing encountered such a situation for the first time. Suddenly sat up. Exclamation leader. There are people in the gate who tremble and live corpses. What's going on? Luo Yuheng's voice sensed for a moment. Smiled helplessly. It was Chu Yuanji who was fighting with Xu Qian'an. Emperor Yuanjing was at a loss. Don't understand. How could that little gong appear in the Lingbao coffin? And how to get entangled with the Lingbao concept? Luo Yuheng explained. There is something special about this sun stunt. Wei Yuan led him to the Guanai to seek swordsmanship. I taught me how to do things. Emperor Yuanjing nodded. Accepted this explanation. After a moment of contemplation, somewhat surprised, Xu Qian'an was able to fight with Chu Yuanji so fiercely. Luo Yuheng was just tired of him pestering him several times. Shuangxiu immediately proposed that His Majesty be interested. You might as well follow the channel to watch the game. Lingbao Guanai. The black gold long knife in Xu Qian's hand was impenetrable. Keep knocking thorny branches. Each collision stirred up a muffled, thunderous sound. At first glance, there was a frenzied wave of air machine ripples. Chu Yuanji stood on the rockery and stood with his hands covered. Smiling. Sometimes sweaty hands. Seems to appreciate Xu Qian's combat power very much. But in fact, he was more surprised in his heart. Although he only performed the sword technique, can be in such a number of flying sword sieges, can hold on in an orderly manner until now without falling into a flaw. It was hard to imagine that he was a martial artist who had just entered the god-refining realm. This means that the opponent's Genshin is unexpectedly powerful. Chu Yuanji was somewhat convinced. It only took him 10 days to get a glimpse of the new sword. Emperor Yuanjing looked at this scene in astonishment. In his impression, Xu Qian'an, has always been just a little person who can solve cases. From the time of the tax bank case, Emperor Yuan Jing had heard of his name. At that time, he was still a fast hand in Chang'an County's makeup shift. Today, I suddenly saw a scene of him fighting with Xu Yuanji. Emperor Yuan Jing was stunned. Emperor Yuan Jing couldn't help but Dao Guosher. How is this Xu Qian's cultivation? Luo Yuheng said lightly. Emperor Yuan Jing of the God Refining Realm nodded suddenly. The dancers of the divine refining realm are mediocre. It doesn't even deserve his attention. It's just a Chang'an County Kwai show. In just half a year, I can step into this realm. Not bad. Emperor Yuan Jing sighed. Rinzong's swordsmanship is unparalleled in the world. Such a fairy method. Playing martial arts is at your fingertips. Luo Yuheng said, Suyin Luo is not bad. His Majesty also said earlier that there is no rising star in the Dafeng court. I think this Suyin Luo is the dragon and phoenix among people. It's good that she doesn't say it. Emperor Yuan Jing listened to it in his ears. Look in the eye. I feel more and more that Xu Yuanji is talented. Su's wife became a foil of green leaves. Especially now. The two fought in the courtyard. The clouds are light and the wind is light. The other side is struggling to cope. Emperor Yuan Jing frowned and said that the means were too scarce. Didn't the national scholars say that he had taught Xu Qian's swordsmanship? Luo Yuheng replied that the poor road passed on him was a new sword. Rinzong's swordsmanship is mysterious. Even if it's a beginner, it doesn't happen overnight. Emperor Yuan Jing smiled unconsciously. After all, it was unsatisfactory. He had a talent for Xu Qian in his heart. There is a more intuitive understanding. The enemy is generally strong, but it's far from a true genius. At this moment, Xu Qian, who was caught in a burst, felt the pressure. He is already a god refining mirror. Captures all the hostility around you. Automatic feedback in the mind. But two fists are no match for four hands. No matter how sharp his spiritual sense is. After all, it's two arms and a knife. It's a bit too much to handle. Therefore, the next grade of a martial artist is a bronze body and iron bone. Specialized in dealing with sieges. Xu Qian has a deeper understanding of the martial arts system. Each grade is making up for a shortcoming. If someone can step into the martial god realm, I'm afraid that the world will be invincible. Suddenly, a breaking wind struck quickly. Xu Qian only felt a tingling of his scalp. No matter how mellow the opportunity is, there is also inertia when the flying sword turns. But number 4's flying sword is running as expected. Completely contrary to the laws of physics. Old man Newton doesn't want to lose face? By the way, this is not Newton's business. For the current dilemma, Xu Qian has no less than 3 ways to respond. The first is the last of the 36 counts. The second is to use the Confucian version of the magic book. It contains several spells that are specifically designed to deal with sieges. The third is to ignore one's own injuries. To Chu Yuanzheng, he slashed the heavens and the earth with a knife. But it's just a competition. All 3 of these methods are out of place at this point. Xu Qian swept away the branches that were stabbed in front of him with a knife. Cohesion. Attached to a black gold sword. Dangling slash. The dark golden blade slammed into the stabbing branch. The moment of the collision. Xu Qian is stagnant in his heart. Comprehended the use of mental power to blow up. Buzz. Invisible telekinesis spreads. Radiate with good deeds. Wrap all the flying swords behind you. The branches toss slightly. Xu Qian was overjoyed. It is concocted by the copper method, splashing the pen and ink forward, pouring spiritual power. Cut down all the remaining flying swords. At this point, Chu Yuanjin's sword blade was broken. Chu Yuanjin was almost stabbed. How did you find out that my telekinesis was attached to the flying sword? Xu Qian is the main knife. Gasped and smiled helplessly. It's probably talent. Outside the courtyard, Emperor Yuan Jing glanced sideways at Luo Yuheng. I saw the beautiful face of the female national teacher. A flash of consternation. Luo Yuheng retracted his gaze. Praise this son is extremely talented. Emperor Yuan Jing rarely saw a national teacher praise a junior like this. Although he also praised Xu Qian'an just now. But it's more polite. And now it's heartfelt appreciation. This made Emperor Yuan Jing a little interested. Luo Yuheng saw that Emperor Yuan Jing was touched. He explained that he had spoken to His Majesty before. I taught Xu Qian'an the method of construction. It was built 10 years ago. The bar is extremely high, even though he is an outstanding disciple of Renzong. Getting started, the long is half a year, as short as 3 months. Such an explanation. Emperor Yuan Jing understood, and Xu Qian'an only took 10 years. He looked at Chu Yuanji on the rockery and asked what about him. Beauty. The answer is also to cultivate the sword technique of the Renzong with the body of the 5 husbands. Chu Yuanji took a month. 3 swordsmanship at the same time. At this time, Chu Yuanji smiled and said with a smile, "What is your mastery?" Xu Qian'an asked me rhetorically. Chu Yuanji nodded. The Tao is from beginning to end. You haven't done anything about it. If you don't leave one hand behind, it's too boring. Xu Qian'an hesitated, although he also wants to try it. But I'm still worried that you and Li Miaozhen are about to fight. I'm afraid I'll hurt you by accident. It affects the dispute between heaven and man. Luo Yuheng and Emperor Yuan Jing. At the same time, he moved away from the champion, looked at Xu Qian'an. The tale of this statement is too arrogant. Chu Yuanjin's eyes lit up. Smiling, the discussion just now was a little boring. If you have any knowledge, just use it. Xu Qian'an nodded. I only have 1 move. After 1 move, that's the end of our discussion. He was preventing Chu Yuanjin from taking a knife. Wave your hand to fight back. Poke yourself into a hedgehog. Chu Yuanjin also asked in a deep groan. You will enter a period of weakness. Xu Qian'an was a little impressed. Champion Lang is really smart. The brain is the light. He didn't talk nonsense anymore. Take a deep breath. Qi Shun Dantian. Xu Qian'an withdrew the black gold long knife. Let him return to the scabbard. Then he took a lunge. Knees sink slightly. Slowly press your right hand on the hilt. Make a gesture to draw the knife. A shot rang out. Xu Weifen's thumb popped out the black gold long knife at the same time. Visualize the golden lion roaring in my mind, accompanied by Chun Xiong's roar. He drew his sword. Chu Yuanjin's ears burst into flames. It was like a scorching thunder exploding overhead. At this critical juncture, Zhuang Yuanlang unhurriedly handed over the branch in his hand. The branches dotted in the moment of the sword's breath. A furious shockwave swept through the garden in an instant. The rockery under Chu Yuanjin's feet exploded first. This was followed by the gazebo behind him. 4 pillars snapped in response. The flat top flies first and rushes high. Emperor Kong Yuanjing was already stunned at this moment. This knife completely exceeded his expectations for Xu Qian'an. Luo Yuheng saw them. It is necessary to collapse the myopia behind him. Red lips twitched. The furious shockwave froze instantly, then disappeared into the field. Xu Qian'an sat cross-legged, knife in one hand, looked sluggish. Chu Yuanjin's half-cut sleeve was shattered. Reveal powerful forearms that accentuate the muscles. He slowly bent his fingers. The snooping road is amazing. If you are in the realm of the 5 grades, this knife can seriously injure me. Xu Qian's face suddenly darkened. The special Lao Tzu struck with all his might. Just cut a loneliness. But spit is spit out. You can't afford to lose in terms of momentum. Xu Qian raised his head. Imitate Su Erlang's expression. Lightly said, he is worthy of being a strong man who can fight with Li Miaozhen. Su was willing to bow down. Chu Yuanji smiled and sweated. He knew that Xu Qian'an was also a very proud person. This arrogance is no worse than that of the scholars in Yulu Academy. Emperor Yuan Jingdi showed a hearty smile. Chu Yuanji deserves to be an outstanding disciple of Renzong. This cultivation is rare. Xu Qian'an is still far away. But he's just a whore after all. There's still work to be done. Luo Yuheng did not refute. Just reluctantly hee-hee. Emperor Yuan Jing suddenly became more and more happy, laughed, and said that there was still something going on in the palace. It is inconvenient to stay for a long time. Send me off. At this time, Xu Qian'an in the courtyard suddenly shouted, "See your majesty." Chu Yuanji also bowed, but he didn't speak. Emperor Yuan Jing rarely did not have a straight face. Nodding his head, a wonderful showdown. Xu Qian'an, your talent is good. Don't let down the cultivation of the imperial court. Xu Qian'an replied like a stream, thanking his majesty for his cultivation. Humble and dedicated. Dead and gone. Yuan Jing closed his head and nodded. Walked side by side with Luo Yuheng towards the outside of the gate. Xu Qian'an looked at the backs of the two. Pouted. Pick and search day by day. Will be a mouthful of empty heads. There is no actual representation. I can't wait for the two of them to see it. When he arrived, Chu Yuanji said, "Brother Su, wait a minute. I'm going to change my clothes." With that, he turned around and went to Jinshu. A few minutes later, Xu Qian'an looked at Chu Yuanji. I wonder if Brother Chu is not a student of Yinlu Academy. Chu Yuanji poured him a cup of tea. Gently explained that I studied at Yunlu Academy. Later, he went to Guozijian. When he was young, he was full of ambition, a belly full of talent. I want to bring disaster to the emperor's family. I know that the students of Yunlu Academy are not reused. He left the college to study. Guozijian Xu Qian'an asked. Then why did you resign later? Chu Yuanji sighed and said, because it is useless. It's scholars who can't save Dafeng. Simply resigned, made a white-clothed sword tour of the rivers and lakes. Xu Qian'an slapped the table and applauded. It was really chic. No wonder Chu Yuanji saw Emperor Yuan Jing just now. It's just a faint line. There was no greeting,